When you were moving offices and you opened up that drawer and you came across this box, what went through your mind? And where, obviously we know where it ended, but what went through your mind?
When I found that, I realized that I had not heard of this person, and I went to the file drawer and found the actual file for Richard Allen Whiteman at that time, as it had been written. And I read the report that Dan Doolin had made after he had spoken with him. And I, as being an investigator, I had looked at some of the statements from the girls that said they had seen a person out at the bridge. And basically, I put the two and two together, took it to Tony, and we went from there.
Hello?
Unmute, right? Unmute,
Yes.
unmute. Damn it, man. I was like, hey, we have a guys, welcome in. Thanks for coming in. We're going to give it a few minutes, let everybody trickle in, but we have another guest co-host up here with us tonight. I'm going to bring them on stage now. Hello, All Eyes. Welcome in.
Hi.
Hey, we're glad you could join us.
I'm glad to join you too.
Oh, it's good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, it'll be a good show. Get some good conversations, I'm sure. I'm going to drop a link to All Eyes' channel. She did a great video upload a little while ago, and I want you guys to go over and check her out. Let me get that pulled up here. Check her out and give her a thumbs up and you know, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. She did a really good video, and it really says a lot. I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. Let me pull this up. Okay, now let me go in and drop it in the links. Okay, here we go. There is a link to All Eyes YouTube coming up there. You guys go over. I would play it, but I don't want to take your views away, hun. I mean, it's up to you, but I would rather everybody go over and give the video a watch for themselves over there at your channel. It's honoring Officer Greg Ferenczi, who was murdered during the Delphi investigation. Whether it's related or not yet, we don't know, but a lot of us have our thoughts on that, and we'll kind of discuss that here in a little bit as well. But it was a great video, girl. I enjoyed. I mean, you did a good job. You always do a good job.
Well, I've used some of those clips before for other videos because I've been following the Shane Meehan thing pretty closely, and I didn't realize until I think it was last night, the court TV thing, how many people are just unaware that he had anything to do with the Delphi investigation or anything about Shane Meehan. So I kind of repurposed it to kind of put it back out there, and there's a bunch of links in there for basically a compilation of Clicks report that gives us a glimpse into Ferenczi's, and it all comes from the filings, but just some information about all of that stuff that really hasn't gotten much attention, mostly because it was excluded. But I thought, well, it's probably a good time to re-up some of that stuff.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was kind of surprised as well. People who haven't followed the case as closely as some of us may not be familiar with it, you know, and what it was even about. With as far as Ferenczi and Meehan go, and even when I was watching Michelle After Dark's video, she was a little surprised at some things and I thought she kind of knew all of that, you know. But it's a good way to get the information out there. So your video did great by doing that, because it's just bringing awareness, more awareness, you know, of people who were calling all of us crazy, that we're just conspiracy theorists, you know, all the things we were called, but they were missing so much of the information, you know, and
Absolutely.
they weren't willing. Yeah, and they weren't willing to listen to anybody that came out opposite of the narrative being pushed by the prosecution. And I think that's a mistake a lot of times, because even with cases where I feel I'm leaning guilty, I will still go and view other things to keep me balanced, you know. Okay, let me go check this out just to see if I can make up my mind. But
Alexa, stop.
So is she bothering you, Joe? Tell her about her business.
Well, she's playing Christmas music, and it might get you like copyrighted.
Oh, shoot. Oh, well,
I'll always forget about that.
right? Me too. I'm like, whatever. They can still. I've gotten like a copyright. I didn't get copyrighted, but like if I do some of my videos and I use CapCut and I'll use like a background music or something, and then I'll upload it on TikTok, it's fine. I do the same exact video on YouTube, and they're like, "Oh, that's a copyright," but I don't get a violation for it.
Right. I get that on every one of mine. I'm like, what are they going to do? Like, I mean, it's not monetized or anything. So I can't really, I'm not,
Right?
I'm like, as long as it doesn't go against me for something else, I don't
Yeah.
really pay much attention to it. Yeah. I think they just make it, they want you to take note of it, that they do track it, I guess.
I guess so. I'm like, I guess they got these little
They're
tools.
like, yes, we do check this.
Hey, well, I'm glad y'all are checking because I can use it every other places, But yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm not monetized either, so I'm just like not into all that right now either. Like, I don't even know if it'll matter if I ever get monetized. If I'm like, well, gonna pull back what I do for them for the sake of that. Welcome in, Kelt. Good to see you. Hey, Sleuthy, how are you? Lindsay, welcome in. Veronica, free Ricky Bay. Hey. Sleuthy, you're a nut. Mine just says, we're giving any money you make on this video to the person who owns it. I'm like, yeah, sure. You can have the whole 0 cents.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, most Christmas songs are in the public domain, but you never know when they
True.
play a Taylor Swift remake and she reports you, and then you're going to be in all kinds of trouble.
Yeah. The
Hey,
bigger
now-
artists definitely have like whole teams of things and stuff that's almost automated at this point to catch just about anything that could potentially even qualify for a hit.
Well, they need to calm down. They have a ton of money. They don't not going to lose a
know.
whole lot because we played 5 seconds of their song or whatever. They're like, calm down, Taylor. My daughter is a full-on Swiftie. She puts a lot of money in your pockets, hun. Trust me. She goes to every concert she can get her hands on and
That's
buys
funny.
all the stuff. So yeah, she's like a total Swiftie. But it's all.
Did she make it to the Eras tour? Did she get to
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, man.
Actually, her husband surprised her with tickets to that recently. So
Nice.
that she-
Very
she-
nice.
like there was this I think it was last year, she went to 2 back-to-back concerts here in Florida. She got it's the whole thing. She loves her, so I'm like, you go for it, baby, you go do you. Like Taylor needs a buck, right? Like, come on, girl, share the wealth, man, share the wealth.
Back to the Pharisee thing, though,
Yeah, go ahead.
even if you just look at the facts of the case, like if you look at the public records, the court filings, it's so crazy, just like the facts of the case. And
Mm-hmm.
it's even crazier for them to make us think that they're not related, and we don't have any proof that they're related. But you have a guy who's investigating the deaths of Abby and Libby, and he gets killed by a former IDOC guard. I mean,
Mhm.
just the fact alone should everybody's ears should be up. We should be checking into that more.
That should have been a red flag.
Well,
No.
it was for me initially because I was already familiar with the FCC complex because of the research I started doing into Wotan's folk and David Lane. There's a big, there's like a blockbuster type of movie out in the actual theaters right now, The Order. I still haven't gone to see it yet. I planned on it. I just don't know when. And I started looking into some of that when this stuff first came up. I started on the opposite side of the fence of where I am right now when this case, like when I came into this case. I was under the impression that they probably have the right guy.
Mhm.
Like in general, when an arrest is made, I typically believe they probably, why else? They got to have something if they're going to arrest somebody. And I just didn't really give it much thought until they unsealed the PCA. And man, did that send me on. I mean, it was a process, but I am very far from where I started. And it's because I am just one of those people who I don't care which side it helps or hurts. Like, I just want to know what's what. I just want real answers. That's all I'm looking for. And whatever side has the real answers, I'd prefer it was both. But, sometimes we're not so fortunate.
Yeah.
But just wherever the answers lead me, that's where I'm going to go, regardless of what it, I don't have a preference on what the real answer is, as long as it adds up. And the more I started getting into trying to make sense of things, that's when there was a whole bunch of process, like this folder project I have. It was all kind of, it started from me trying to email the judge, trying to just find out. I'm from a small town too, so I'm used to just ask, if you got a question, you just call the office and you ask them real quick and they'll help you right out. I guess I'm from a different kind of small town, but it was definitely different in the Midwest than I'm accustomed to. But when I started looking into the Franks memo and the information in that, I kind of expected to end up on Tumblr and all these like blogs, and I found so much literature and a very long history of Odinism in the prison movement, in law enforcement in some cases, and just all kinds of. That's kind of where I stumbled across David Lane and the Wotensvolk, and the closest I've been able to come to a connection between FCC Terre Haute, which is where Shane Meehan worked, and Greg Ferenczi, is the fact that David Lane was housed there at the FCC complex while Shane Meehan was employed. And I don't know which part of the prison David Lane was in, but I do know that leading up to his death, that was the height of his success in winning a lot of these victories for Odinist rights within the prison system. And it's really strange to me that even the corrections officers were allowed to wear these patches, because as early as 2008 or 2009, IDOC was trying to ban group worship because they formally recognized them at like gang shit. They don't view them as actually worshiping. On the inside, it's gang shit. On the outside, some of them do get out and they continue practicing. There's definitely a distinction to be made between people who practice the old ways and then this modern bastardization of it.
Yeah.
And some people get real worked up if you don't make the distinctions properly enough. But
well, we saw Amber Holder on the stand on August 1st, saying nobody that, first of all, she said nobody worships Odin. We all worship the lower gods, which, okay, that's fine. But then she said nobody that does would ever kill women or children because Odin protects women and children.
Right. Well,
so
that's kind of where most people are. Actually, I've got to mute for a second. I got to let this ridiculous cat out. I'm so sorry. I'm going to mute for just a second.
You're good. I have a cat. I get it. She's right. Everything she was just saying is correct. And I felt the same way. I knew that there was issues with the case, right? I already knew that. We saw how things were kind of going there. And then the Franks motion comes out and we all read it. And then those of us who did take deeper dives into it and saw how real, because then when you first read it, it's like unbelievable. It's like, what, what is this? But when you start looking into it and you realize this is all really real and it exists. And this is what they've done with with their version of the Odinism, I guess, with what they incorporate into it, and the fact that it is rampant in the prison system, that alone was like, whoa. And you continue to read on about it, but and I was Sleuthies took deep dives into it. I had got some ideas from her, and I would go look, and I'm like, man, this stuff is really, it's really deep, and it's not like it was just pulled out of the thin air that we all made up one day on the internet and like, let's go look what, it was actual real stuff, and you can't deny that it was, and that's what people would come at us, for you're supporting a child killer, you're doing this, you're doing all the craziness that was said.
I'm doing no such thing. I'm supporting somebody I think is absolutely innocent.
Right. You're like, no, wait, but have you read this? Do you, this is what was really looked into. It was absolutely legitimate, and then when you realize what happened with Greg Ferenczi, and then when you see who the perpetrator of that was, it's like, whoa, that's major
Yeah.
red flags. Now, you mentioned he worked at which because I was looking earlier.
FCC Terre Haute.
That's what I was
And
wondering, because I did look in the area and the
there's
county.
some infamous people that have been in and out of there. And
Okay.
the thing, I don't see a direct connection just between that alone.
Mhm.
And I've kind of been hesitant to say anything. I'm very interested to hear more from, I believe it's Erica, who was on Defense Diaries and Court TV. She said he was openly an Odinist. I've not seen anything
Thank you. Because
concrete.
Okay.
And it might be something that, I stick to the public filings and public information. So just because it's not in a news article, I doubt it would have been put in a news article. So maybe he might have been. I just don't know that. I'm not sure.
I have not seen any connect. I've not. Okay, so here's the thing. I know for a fact some of those guards that were at the prison guarding Rick Allen were proud
Oh yeah, for sure.
all over their TikToks, social medias. So I even DM'd somebody earlier and I said, hey, did you ever put a connection together with Meehan and the Odinism? Because I never saw that either. Doesn't mean it's not out there and doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
His Facebook's locked down. I really can't see any photos or anything like that. But
well, Westville is also unique in how open they let their guards be.
Yeah.
That's not common at the other prisons. So it might not be like he might be out in the open, like to family and friends, but not, you're not supposed to display that in any other prison, whether you're a corrections officer or even most people understand, like police officers and military, you can't just put that shit on your uniform. And so it could be something as that. I just, but yeah, at Westville, it was that when I hear out in the open, that's what I think is like Westville, but they were not the same. Other prisons are not that open, I don't think.
Well, I honestly won't be surprised. Now,
I won't either. I just don't know.
Being an investigator, I'm sure she's privileged to a lot more information than any of us could dig up, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a connection there with him and Odinism, they're going to be able to find that and prove it. And like Sleuthy said, maybe she misspoke a little bit because it's her finally the gag is lifted and she was able to talk. But I was quite surprised by that statement too on Court TV, and we are going to review that because I don't know if everyone has been able to see that. I saw her first as a guest on Defense Diaries, and I watched that, and then I watched the Court TV thing as well. And when that statement was made, I was like, "Whoa!" I
can see the nexus. I just don't know the specifics. I think I've talked to Meow about this before, where
you can see that you can see the nexus, but Goal can't.
Right?
She has a hard time with that one.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
She doesn't see things she doesn't want to see though. But yeah, I mean just the environment he was in at that prison, considering some of the radicalization that was going on in that prison specifically with the leader of a whole culture of absolute weirdos. I don't know what else to call them. They're a strange bunch. There's a lot of arsonists, murderers. I mean, they're just that movie that's coming out. I want to see it because it's a very strange. They're a difficult group to describe and to accurately peg because they're a little bit of everything in some ways, and just that environment that he was in with the successes that they were having at the time, I can absolutely see it being possible. And that in my mind, if he was known as, that's probably where it would have started. But beyond that, I doubt they would advertise that because as a corrections officer, especially back then, I can't imagine it probably would have cost your job to even admit it, at least back then. But, now we've got corrections officers boldly wearing patches at Westville. So I don't know. It's just, I do want to know more. I've been curious about it for more than a year now.
Yeah.
Because I do know there was a very brief interview that his wife gave and his son. They had like a little school assembly, and I feel for his family. I always feel for the families on both sides.
Is she ex-wife now, right? She's ex-wife.
I'm not sure. Right? I think so. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure they filed for divorce in June. Yeah.
Yeah. At the time of the interview, it was still his spouse. But even the kid, they seem genuinely shocked and confused, and it's hard to know, especially from such a short interview. There's not much insight, and I've made a CCS doc for Shane Meehan's court filings. All of them are in the links to the doc. Matt Black is so good about getting all those documents so quick. Every time I see him, I put it on there just to make it so everybody can find them in one place. But I've been scouring them, looking for some indication of something. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, the fact that when it came out that Shane Meehan was a former corrections officer, that to me that said a lot. Like, that's too coincidental, right?
Right.
The person who took Greg Ferenczi out like that happened to be a corrections officer. I'm like, no, that anybody who's looked into this case and sees the things are going to go, that's a red flag right away. And if you don't see that, you're not paying attention,
Right.
And I don't think a lot of people who are on the outside who don't follow this like we do, they have no clue.
Mhm.
But it just was
Well, I
too
had no clue
much.
before I started looking into it. I'm like, what are these people talking about?
Yeah,
I just didn't know.
Well, when you start spreading the word like you have done, like I've tried to do, and Joe's done, and Sleuthie has done, and not like spitting out narratives and pushing things, but putting out the information.
I mean,
You
our
know?
peer countries and all of our law enforcement agencies and the peer agencies and other countries that we have military cooperations with, and we have lots of FBI offices in Canada and all over the place. All of these peer countries have terrorism reports every year, just like our DOJ puts one out. All of these different levels from state and local. These Odinists have been on there since the 90s. I did not expect to find all of that kind of stuff when I was going back to just see what is this, trying to get some context for it. And the context is terrorism.
Yes.
And it's just, there's a lot of
I was surprised when
really
I found out
high-level
some of
ones,
this
but
stuff.
some of them are just petty criminals too.
Yeah. It really is surprising when you start looking into it, even like, a year ago, like a lot of us started doing, and the things that I was finding out, even like the Southern Poverty Law Center and the things that are written on there about these alternate suspects before
Right.
Delphi ever happened. They were already on the radar of the government
Oh yeah.
because of what they were doing. And so for people to say, well, that stuff's not even legitimate. Why are you talking about it? Excuse me, it's very legitimate. You want to see the proof,
Yeah.
And there was just so much out there. I'm going to pull up the court TV piece, and I don't think Joe has seen it yet, and there may be a few others that have not seen it. And man, Vinny's face when she started talking about some of this stuff, I was like, whoa,
He
dude.
always acts so surprised.
I know. When he knows a lot of it. Dude's all over YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, he even started doing lives.
Like, sir, where have you been if you're this surprised? Where have you been?
Sorry. He does that with Sebastian Rogers' case. Gonna act like he don't know. Dude, you know. You know. Oh, okay. Let me get this up here. There's Bob, our favorite defense attorney. Okay. Here we go.
Joining me, criminal defense attorney, host of the Defense Diaries podcast, was in the courtroom for the trial, Bob Mata, and private investigator, worked on the case for nearly 2 years, is close with Richard Allen's family. Erica Morse is with us. Thank you both for being here. Erica, it's been a while since I've talked to you about this case. So let's talk about this case. Let's start first with Richard Allen. His wife, Kathy, wasn't there today, right?
No one from the Allen family attended. That was an ongoing discussion between Rick and his family for about the last 2 weeks, Vinny, as to whether or not they should go. And the decision was made that if Rick's advisement by the defense attorneys was to not participate in the pre-sentencing investigation report, and for good reason, that the family would stand with him in solidarity and not accept the verdict by refusing to show up. It is unfair to watch this family, or to ask this family to watch this man be sentenced for crimes he did not commit in a trial that has to be redone.
So, Erica, tell me, why do you believe he did not commit this horrific double murder?
Oh, well, Vinny, we only have, 20 minutes to talk about it tonight. The Frank's memo. Frank's memo, which was not a concoction of the defense team. It was a highly and very thoroughly investigated extension of a report created by an FBI task force who developed that theory. And the man who authored that report died at the hands of an Odinist prison guard 5 days after he turned that report in.
Wait. Say that again?
Mm-hmm. Told you to tell you, Vinny. Bob, back me on this. Am I lying?
No, she's talking about Greg Ferenczi, who was one of the three authors of the Odin report that Click, Ferenczi, and Kevin Murphy all put together because they continued that line of investigation for years until Greg Ferenczi was killed, and that was in front of a federal building shortly after he turned in that document.
Explain this to how was he killed? So the man who was killed was working for the FBI or was part of the task force? Who exactly was he?
He was one of the three members of the task force tasked with investigating all of the tips related, and I mean all of the tips related to a particular group of individuals. And Greg authored the report. It was turned in, I believe, on May 2nd. And he, on May 7th, was sitting in an office inside the federal building in, I believe it was Indy or Terre Haute. And a Molotov cocktail was thrown through his office window. Greg vacated his office, ran outside in front of the federal building, and that is when he was shot in the head by a former prison guard who is very openly tied to Odinism.
So was that prison guard arrested and prosecuted for this?
Yes, and charged, convicted. Yes, sir, he was. And this is one of the many details about the Delphi case that...
Wait, Salty, can you pause for a second?
No, they don't want the world to know that Todd Click is...
If I could get my clicker to work on my mouse. Sorry about that.
Did he just ask her if he was tried and convicted of that? Because I don't believe he has, because he was found not competent, right?
Yeah,
he did a mental health evaluation and he's not competent to stand trial yet.
Right. He has been charged, but he has not been convicted yet. Yes, exactly. But yes, he was found incompetent to stand trial. And I made a comment this morning in Michelle's video, or her live, I think it was live. They were talking about it, I'm like, well, and she actually showed a clip where he was interviewed because Meehan ran as an independent for, what was it, mayor?
Yeah.
So they had him on the news talking, and he's like very coherent, very normal appearing and acting. Like, what made him lose his shit so quick to become incompetent? Was he held in solitary confinement for what, nearly 2 years and pre-trial and done all the, what made him so just flip all of a sudden to where he's no longer, a competent person? I don't know. Maybe he was crazy back when he tried to run for mayor and I just didn't see it, but but he talked.
Well, it depends on the person's history. Like for some people, and because we don't know, that's one of the things that's very frustrating to me about this is because one, the information that we would need to know to really have any sort of actual opinion on it is none of our business because medical records are private. But at the same time, it's hard to really know what to make of something when we don't know anything about it other than he's incompetent. We don't know if he's got a long history of this kind of mental illness. But that's, it's kind of one of those things where it's Schrodinger's whatever. We just don't know.
Even if you had a history, Rick Allen has a history as well. But
and if you look at Shane Meehan's public record, he has one drunken disorderly charge back, 15 years ago. He and his wife had some kind of a domestic civil thing that they filed back in 2013-ish. But They are still married. They have their final dissolution hearing in Vigo County coming up in January, but I believe she did file in June of this year.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would love to see the records on how they determined that man suddenly was incompetent to stand trial. But, you know, Rick Allen's competency was like, they're like, we don't question it. The guy's fine, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's very ridiculous how this is all played out.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, Sleuthy, he did.
The mayor of Terre Haute, I believe. Yes, the mayor. He ran for mayor of
He-
Terre Haute.
He barely got any votes from what I read. So, and
Well, in the interview with his family, they were so shocked because the night before this happened, he apparently was playing catch with one of the kids. And I mean, it really was. But the thing about, especially with psychosis, it really is unpredictable. And unless you know the source of what's causing it, it's different for everybody. It's hard to know if, I mean, it might have been a shock to them because they thought he was fine in that moment, and maybe he's never escalated to that extreme of behavior before. So maybe that was the source of the true shock. But it's just, I don't know what to make of it. It is, everything about it is strange.
Well, it makes me wonder, did he have just a beef with the FBI, or did he have a problem with Ferenczi alone? You know what I mean? What was the motive behind him doing what Meehan did? To throw the Molotov cocktail into the building, to have them run out, to shoot Ferenczi like that. What was your motive? Were you just had an issue with the FBI? Was it a particular issue with Greg Ferenczi that you had? Or was it, don't be investigating my friends, stop?
Yeah, it's difficult because even if he was trying to target Ferenczi, how do you know he's going to be the first one out the door? But at the same time, if he was that committed to making sure to get him, maybe that was why he brought Molotov cocktails, to make sure, like, he might have been so focused on him that he was willing to take out whoever he needed to make sure, you know, he was willing to take other casualties. But it's hard, you know, it could be that, it could just be he went bonkers. You know,
Well,
it's really difficult to know.
Yeah, there was another agent in the building as well, and Sleuthy, they both came out, and I believe it was the second, Greg returned fire, but the second officer did as well.
The second one is the one who actually
shot
landed some shots on Meehan.
Yeah.
And Meehan got in his own truck and drove himself to the hospital.
Yeah. He was shot, you know, shot at, and he was hit. And like she said, he drove himself to the hospital in his own vehicle, right?
Okay, so here's a question. That's a federal building.
Yeah.
They have cameras. Has anybody FOIA'd those cameras, or is it a quote unquote active investigation and we're not going to
active investigation as far as I know.
Active investigation, and it's in Indiana. Joe, come on now.
Yeah. I mean, it's been so,
yeah.
There's like
the way,
no information. That's why I'm so frustrated with
crazy.
it, because all we can do is really speculate with what makes sense, what could make sense, but at the end of it,
well,
we just do not know.
I'm gonna tell you, it don't make any sense to me that this Ferenczi happened to be the one killed.
Right.
The person who did it happened to be a corrections officer, and then Todd Click, one of the other three investigators working that same case, same angle, was supposed to testify, and lo and behold, was arrested and charged with, you know, forgery, whatever they're charging him with. It was like, come on now, what's going on here? You know, do we have a witch hunt going on? It was like, this is not the case that needs the extra drama, but there it is.
Yeah.
You know, so you can't blame people for having natural questions and wanting real answers, you know, instead of just screaming, oh, you're just conspiracy theorists. There you go again. Well, no, come on now. I'm not just going to turn my head. You know, sometimes you can't just.
Well, I think in the very beginning, when the Franks memo came out, I think people need to try at least to understand that if any of you can remember back to the first time that you found out, like, even for people who don't believe the theory of Greg Ferenczi's case, even just when you found out the prison officers were wearing Odin patches and stuff, like, even that, there was a lot of this that was just shocking, and defense had very little time in between receiving the discovery with all of this and the time they had to file the Franks memo, the only reason they filed it is because in June, Gull told them before she would continue and reset the suppression hearing, they needed to file a Franks. So that was the whole reason they were even filing one. And the window between when they received the discovery with Click's letter and his summary, there's a 12-page report from Kevin Murphy that he wrote, and then there's an 85-page report that Click wrote. I don't know what report Ferenczi turned over or how many pages it was. From the filings, we only know about the 12-page report from Murphy and the 85-page report or summary from Click. But the amount of time they had to process all of it. Oh, what?
Well, don't forget, we had 2 changes of attorneys and attorney teams and legal teams in there too when she kicked off Baldwin and Rosie.
Yeah.
And then they had to take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and then they had to come back, and then they had to rediscover discovery after that. Everything that had come into the replacement team, they had to go back over again. So,
well, I think people took issue with the way they characterized Ferenczi's investigation, but the thing I think is important to understand is these are attorneys. They are not, even when they meet with their clients, they're usually in county jails. They're not in the prison system where, especially in the state prisons, especially in Indiana, it is actual gang shit behind bars. When you talk about onanism, it is more times than not, it's a different thing than what it is on the outside. It just is. Mm-hmm. And so the characterization of it with the human sacrifice and stuff, I think one of the reasons I put that video out today specifically is because it does kind of show that Greg Ferenczi he was a deep diver. He would go way back into the history, and he was just trying to glean details and really get a very rich understanding of the belief system of these people. And of course, no legitimate anything is responsible for, nobody who practices a legitimate religion was doing this. It was obviously, if it was anything, it was a bastardization. It was some extremist something. But, a lot of, even with Murder Sheet, when they did that podcast, they tried to leave out part of Todd Click's statement. Yeah. They just stuck with the one. It's like nobody in law enforcement believes it's human sacrifice. Well, that may be true, but they did believe it was the suspects. And defense was not, you have to understand, defense did not have the same 1.5 2 years that all law enforcement and unified command had to process all of this. It wasn't shocking to them because it was not new information to them. These defense attorneys are getting gazillion bytes of discovery, and they have a very small time to process all of this and properly contextualize anything. I think they did an incredible job considering. But yeah, I do think a lot of the conspiracy, I think that's where it comes from, is because people thought defense was trying to turn it into that when they were not trying to. They were trying to take this report at its word.
Right.
And they just didn't have any other context for it.
And when you look at when they were taken off the case, and what was the other guy's name? The other attorney that came in for a few minutes there, and he came out after he got back off the case, and they put the original attorneys back on, Rosie and Baldwin, and then he went on court TV and spoke about the case, and his surprise.
Libretto or Scarbato.
Libretto. Yeah, that's it. Scarbato. We don't know what his name is. But yes, the way he reacted, really was like, wow, he saw what the defense team was seeing. And he even said, this is real. This is
even their investigator in her affidavit, she even said, when looking at these crime scene photos, it's, when she was, when there's a new defense team, they have new that investigator, none of these people had any, they didn't have a dog in the fight one way or the other. They're just all doing their job. They're just going to find facts and put it all together. And even she said, just by looking at it, even using her own common sense when looking at one thing and the other thing, they put 2 and 2 together and it added up. And so it was not just the attorneys, it was also the investigator. And it's just at a certain point you have to realize, okay, if some people are going to they're going to try to get you on a technicality. Well, technically all acid trip people don't believe this or that. Well, that's not the conversation we're having though. Some people don't want to have the nuanced conversation that needs to happen if you're going to get to the bottom of anything.
Exactly. And I agree with that. I've watched other people try to talk about the case and they get completely sidetracked. They went off into a whole paganism and how it's not bad. I'm like, wait a minute, we're not doing that. This is
Right.
let me
Nobody's doing that for Lori Vallow.
Right.
Nobody is saying what she
Right.
practiced was the real thing.
Right.
Nobody's saying this is what they're teaching in all the
And boy,
temples. No, like
what that
obviously
girl was
she was
teaching.
off on her own little la la land. There are
Exactly.
some cases of that. Like that is the context that it has always been in. Nobody was trying to come out and do a satanic panic or they're all bad and nobody's saying that. We are talking about, at a certain point, like, do we need to preface it every single time for those people?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what they need, but yeah, there's definitely.
It's what I've said all along. People will do evil things in the name of religion, and they have been doing evil things in the name of religion for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of religions that branch off and then take into what they, make it what they want it to be. Look at the Branch Davidians and all these different LSD. I almost said LSD. We're not tripping.
Oh my God, you just cracked me up.
I'm glad I could give you a good laugh tonight.
I needed it. I did.
It wasn't about we're just attacking this particular religion. This what they twisted it to be with their mixture of the white supremacy and the paganism and the, all the things. We all those of us who followed the case know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But
well, to be honest, when I started delving into all of this, a sentence I never thought I would say is I had witches reach out to me and they're delightful. I'm from Texas, from a very, I don't know if sheltered is the right place or just we're in the middle of nowhere. We don't know anybody that's practicing anything other than like you'd sit in a pew for, it's just, I just don't know anybody directly until this experience. And I've met quite a few and they have been very, very helpful and informative. And I read so many books on this that I wouldn't have even known it was a book. There were books written on some of these things, but even they have some very strong opinions about this. And it's not because they have no reason to come out and co-sign something that they don't believe, like they see that there's elements in this crime that they recognize not as something they practice,
right,
but they're also kind of like me. I'm from Texas. I'm familiar, like when I see coded language and like racist stuff, like I'm familiar, not because I am that, but like I'm from Texas. Like you can recognize things that you're familiar with. And I think a lot of people don't understand that just acknowledging something, what is it? Analysis is not, it's not justification. A lot of people are just doing analysis and they're just trying to understand it. And I don't know why it gets some people's panties in such a twist, but it really does.
Well, people who don't really know what they're talking about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot about what witches will do. Okay. Right. People who identify and practice that type of thing. We're not talking about people going out and making sacrifices in the woods. That is not what that is. There's a lot of spiritual elements to it. And I reached out to somebody who was actually a professor and knows a lot about runes and different things and a lot of things actually. That like that's a whole other stream. But there's elements to it that, it's like you said, they can recognize what was being done, but it's not what they would practice personally, right? And if I was to build an altar in my room, who's to say I don't have one? There might be crystals on it, things of that nature. There's offerings you give back to your ancestors, to the gods you worship, or whatever. There's all kind of things. Having an altar does not mean you are a evil person.
Right.
It means you are spiritual, but it depends on what. Now, if you show me a picture of someone's altar, I'm looking to see what's on that altar because that's going to tell me all I need to know about the person. If I want to stick around or not.
Right.
go home and get out my smudge and do my own thing now just to get away from that energy. But yeah, they need to stop confusing it when we talk about it. And you feel like you have to explain it to them every time, you know?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm doing this because you're being a jerk or because you actually need this reassurance. So I do it anyway,
Yeah.
just in case that they really do think. I don't know why I don't understand the people, though, who think I think the man's guilty and I'm defending him despite that. No, I think he's innocent. Like, they have the word, they're not generous when they're describing other people. They think the only reason you could see it differently than they do is if there's some moral issue with you.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff drives me crazy because it's not the case. And no, I'm not out here trying to smear a bunch of anybody just to prove, like, I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation, but I feel like those people do that to exhaust others and derail things. Or maybe they just maybe some of them do think that, but it's not a productive way for anything.
It's not. And I think just people in general, that if you say anything out of what the narrative, what they think it should be, then they want to say something to you. It's like, no, just, it's not my fault you can't open your eyes and read a damn court document. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most of those interactions are because either people have an agenda, or B an ego, or both.
Yeah.
Trolls. There's a lot of trolls out there. I think I almost started war with one this morning on Twitter. It was kind of fun. I was bored and I was in the mood to go. Let's go, dude. But he stopped and he didn't play along, so I got bored with him and left.
Yeah. The only time I'm even bother with him is sometimes I'll post something and regular normal people will just comment, and sometimes there will be people will be talking to each other back and forth and they're just having a conversation, and some people who are not following the case closely, they will jump in and they're asking actual questions, normal questions that a regular person has, especially if they're not in the weeds on this. And these trolls, like Dr. Insane, he's the worst. He will jump in and just say the most hateful, derogatory stuff to these people. And so when I see that happening, I'm like, okay, they need some busy work. So I'll keep them. I'm surprised people are patient with me if they are following me, because they probably don't. They probably get exhausted by that. But I do it so that the other people, if you're just a regular person and you're hopping in to ask someone a question and then you get bombarded with, why are you defending a child killer, and just this crazy stuff that only very a very niche group of the prosecution side does, that's not normal. And people who are just coming in to ask questions, they don't know how to respond to it, and it's very unsettling to them. And so I try to, that's the only time I jump in, though, is when they're just being ridiculous. They're like rabid animals when they're in that mood, and they just spew the dumbest stuff. It's hateful.
I don't mind. I kind of like, I just let the conversations flow. People are going to say what they say. And if they're not, if they're just having a conversation, fine. But to come in with ridiculous stuff or just to be a troll, it's like, but to get mad at somebody because they simply ask a question.
Yeah.
That happened to me on Gray Hughes one night. We were all over there, like, not really trolling, as I don't do. We were just watching because I forgot what he was even talking about. And he said something, and I asked a legit question, and boy, he began to yell at his moderators to block Salty and all this. Like, you don't even know me, and they didn't.
He's such a self-important weirdo.
No, it's like, calm down. You know, I'm leaving your channel now. This is boring anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let this video play out, guys, for a minute, and then we'll go back to having our conversation.
Okay.
Let's finish this up. I don't know how much is left. We want to hear any.
He's been charged with unrelated crimes, another member of that task force. They don't want to know about the number of people associated with this case who have died or been charged, myself included. They don't want the world.
Wait, you've been charged with something now?
The blood. I got to be careful.
Right.
But the blood spatter expert who testified at the Delphi trial was at my home, alone inside my home, 2 days before he testified.
What the hell? Is she talking about the defense's, the prosecution's blood spatter expert?
I have a lot of questions about that. I don't know what that's about, but I am very concerned if she's being charged with anything, because these investigators, the lead investigators of of this investigation, Unified Command, but like the core team, they are very retaliatory. They like to intimidate. They have crossed a lot of lines that does not get enough attention, does not get enough outrage, and it should. And if I didn't realize that it was occurring with the defense team on any level, but yeah, I would like to know more about that. I am actually concerned about that.
I mean, that makes no sense. Why would the prosecute Cecil, like, thank you, True Grit, why would that person even be at her house? That's like when the FBI sent, or when the FBI
that's the dude. That's the dude that, he testified on August 1st.
Right.
And he's the dude that took his own blood to smear it on the tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He also admitted at the end of that testimony that it was just to disprove the defense, like just to offer an alternate thing. He's like, well, I'm not trying to say this is what I think. I'm just trying to say this could be it too. Like that's the defense's job. Like you're supposed to be proving your case. You're not supposed to be like the state in this case seems to be very confused about what their role is. They were supposed to meet their burdens of office and the actual law to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, and it's not supposed to just be speculation. It's not supposed to be just suspicion. It's not even just supposed to be somebody's probably guilty. Even that is not enough.
No.
And so the fact that they were doing all that on the stand and allowed to get away with it, this judge had her mind made up from the beginning. She thinks if it's submitted by the state, by default, it's true and accurate, so it gets admitted. And if it's admitted by the defense, it's by default not true and a lie. And she doesn't even read it.
No, she said that. I don't even read. I'm like, I haven't even read that. She said that in court. One of the few times we got to see in court. I think it was after that when she's like, no more cameras. Y'all can catch.
She also disregarded a lot of threats that were happening and a lot of issues. Like even the prosecutor, he was in contempt of her order from December 2022. Anybody, did I miss the contempt hearing for that? The prosecutor willingly and knowingly violated that order. He was in contempt. Not a thing happened because of that. But we had a whole contempt hearing because defense potentially violated rules of professional conduct, which they didn't. But still, like her bias is very clear in her actual orders and her reaction to he actually violated her order, the prosecutor. Nothing happened. Yeah. But she had a whole it's
why in the world
disparity.
The buzz spatter expert of all people feel the need to go visit this investigator?
Is he trying to follow up on stuff? That's what I mean by I'm concerned.
Right? I mean,
was it retaliatory? Was it to intimidate her? I don't know. I would like more about it though.
Okay. Kelt wanted me to back that up a little bit.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
He was just a weird dude. Like who takes their own blood?
Right.
To do that testing. Who has his own blood drawn in the woods in Carroll County, Indiana, to test it? Like there are hundreds of materials. There are hundreds.
Didn't he have a friend help him or something too? Like one of his friends was like, "Here, take mine too," or something.
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
That might have been a time before, but yeah.
Shit coming out of Indiana, guys. Y'all don't go to Indiana and commit no kinds of crime. You're not gonna.
Yeah, travel advisory remains in effect for Indiana. Arbitrary detentions.
Kohbergers got lucky. He just got stopped twice and let go. He didn't get to Indiana prison. He would have been sitting there next to Rick Allen. They were arrested a month apart. I mean, Jesus, golly. Let's see.
Wait, you've been charged with something now?
The bloods. I got to be careful.
Right.
But the blood spatter expert who testified at the Delphi trial was at my home, alone inside my home, 2 days before he testified in the trial, and Bob can attest to that. There's so much y'all don't know, Vinny. There's so much. People are scared, and then to have Doug and Dick sit there today and disparage us for the work we've done and talk about the transparency that they claim occurred in a case where there was none, where the defense team wasn't even allowed to present a case. Let's go. I'm ready.
Oh,
I told you I was going to talk starting the day the gag order was lifted. Let's do this.
Bob, what are you? I'm trying to make some sense of all this. So it seems like there's a big backstory here to the whole Odinism angle. And I just want to clarify this, right? So there's a task force that's part of law enforcement. And there's some members of this task force who had a different theory. They did not believe Richard Allen, or Richard Allen wasn't even on the radar yet for anyone, but they believed that the murder of these two girls was connected to some sort of Odinistic or Odinistic group ritual killing. And what you're telling me is that one member of that group who authored that report is no longer alive. Another one's been arrested for something.
Right before trial. Unrelated to the case, but
is he law enforcement or is she law enforcement? Like the people on this task force, were they law enforcement officers?
Oh yeah, these were all longtime cops. These were all decorated. I mean, just Google Greg Ferenczi. You'll see immediately this guy was highly respected. All of these cops were longtime cops. And that's kind of what we've been saying about, this concept of Doug Carter getting up there and casting shade on the defense for doing their job. Number one, let's just understand that it's their job, and everything that was in that Frank's memo that people on the Richard Allen is guilty. They created this whole narrative thing. The defense did side. I don't know if they just don't realize that all of that came from the discovery tendered to the defense by the state. None of this was cooked up by the defense.
Right.
That exact report we're talking about was in the discovery. That report that we're talking about right now was in the discovery. So when they start talking to these cops, obviously Ferenczi wasn't there to talk to, but the defense called Click, deposed Click. They deposed Kevin Murphy or called Kevin Murphy. They were like, what is this all about? Does this thing have legs?
Wow.
I mean, everything that was in that Frank's memo.
Stay where you are. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll discuss more of these explosive revelations.
So I wonder if these charges she spoke of ever so briefly had something to do with the visit she got from the blood spatter expert.
I'm not sure, but I'm very curious and very concerned.
Yeah, it is very concerning. When I heard that, I was like, wait a minute.
She said he was in her house.
In her house. Mm-hmm. What was he doing?
Okay, but did she open the door to him?
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know.
I'm Trooper Cecil with.
Yeah.
Well, he's from a different county. So, I mean, they brought him in from a different county. They didn't bring him in until January of this year. He didn't go out to the site till April of this year. So It's all puzzling. It's very puzzling.
It's more than puzzling. It's like another piece to this damn case that doesn't make any sense. But we heard I don't know if it's the same type of situation. It's not the same type of situation, but when the defense in Kohberger's case had brought in some IGG experts, right? And they testified, or they did at one they had a little hearing, they testified. Well, it was like the next day or two, the FBI was at the door to one of those ladies. And really, we don't even know what it was all about. I think she came out and was talking way too much. There's a gag order in that case as well. And so she came out. Remember that Sleuthy? And was it Vargas? Was that her name? That they came knocking on her door. It was the FBI, though. It wasn't, the trooper blood spatter guy. Yeah. But it doesn't make it. I don't like it when that happens. Why are y'all doing this? What did she do to warrant the FBI to knock on her door? I do know that she was talking to social media when she probably shouldn't have. But then again, so did Cyree. So whatever. But is this kind of the same? I could see it. Maybe it was a officer that investigated the case, but it's the blood
spatter guy.
Right.
It's strange.
It's very strange. What the hell's he going to do over there? I don't know, taking pictures and doing, I don't know what the hell. That's a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he had like a story. Was he trying to consult with her or something? I've been trying to rack my brain on what he could even pretend to have a good reason to show up at her house for. I can't think of any.
I can't either. I can't think of one good reason why that would even need to happen. It's odd, and maybe we'll get more information as time goes on with that.
Yeah, I hope she's up for some more follow-up interviews because
I
I
know,
think a
right?
lot of us have a lot of questions about some stuff. And I think she did. I'm pretty sure everybody already realizes it, but she did misspeak. The Ferenczi was killed on July 7th, not May 7th.
Okay.
And I believe that the report was actually still written on May 2nd, not
So it wasn't just a couple of days later. I think they were chatting about that in the chat a few
right.
minutes ago as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Sleuthie
I'm
brought
pretty
that.
sure.
That's what Sleuthie said as well. She's right there
Okay.
with you on that. Right here is her comment back to somebody had a well, that was the question. Was, did you catch the dates? Erica says are incorrect. Ferenczi was July 7th, not May 7th. And
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
yeah, Sleuthie says that she asked, and the report was written May 2nd. So still, it's still, to me, it doesn't matter 2 days, 2 months. That's too much of a coincidence for me. It was for me anyway, in my opinion. I was like,
Yeah.
this is
Well, I think it's also some people don't understand. It wasn't, they refer to the FBI was investigating. Greg Ferenczi was a veteran officer of the Terre Haute Police Department. He was also a Joint Terrorism Task Force member. There's a lot of a lot of different types of joint task forces that the
So
FBI works with local PD.
Right. What role was he in when he was investigating this? It had to have been
Ferenczi
with
was
the FBI, right?
he was JTTF. He was Joint Terrorism Task Force, and Murphy. I can't remember in this moment if he was. I don't think he was task force, but he might have been. But
No.
Click, he was just the assistant police officer in Rushville, and he was not brought in until August of 2018. He ran the equipment, and he offered the police station for them in June of 2018 to interview Elvis Fields for the second time. He was brought into Rushville PD, and because Click had direct experience with both Messer and Elvis Fields and some of the other dipshits. Because they had been arrested for different things, but he was familiar with all of them. And so Ferenczi and Murphy asked him, they kind of recruited him, I think is the word that was Murphy's phrasing in his transcript, where they recruited him in August of 2018 officially to help assist them with their investigation. It was more than just a hometown feel. He was familiar with these characters. He was able to help them establish direct connections between the Rushville people and people in Delphi. And so they were not all part of the FBI. Ferenczi definitely was. He was a task force member. I can't for the life of me remember I don't think Murphy was part of a task force, but
wasn't Murphy
also
ISP,
left in 2019.
Right?
Say that again?
She said, Kat saying that he was ISP, Murphy.
Yeah, he's absolutely ISP, but I can't remember if he's one of the ones that is also, like, Vito is also part of a U.S. Marshals task force.
Yeah.
Some of them they have dual roles with different agencies, and I'm blanking out right now, but I do know Murphy's role ended in 2019, and he retired very shortly after that. And so it's not that just he was gone from Delphi, he was no longer a trooper shortly after that. So for a while, it was just Ferenczi and Click until Ferenczi died.
Right. So I only got into a couple of days of trial, but I was there when Tony Liggett testified. And he testified that thing with the FBI happened in 2019.
I have a lot of questions about that because
I do too.
Because of the discrepancies and because it's basically Liggett's word against Holman's word, and neither one of them are very trustworthy. But in Holman's deposition, he said it happened in 2021 over some conflicts, which just irritates the shit out of me the way he describes it. But he said it was just some conflicts, but from the 3-day hearings on, we've heard something happened in 2019.
Yep.
But when I have gone through all of the filings, there was the only thing that was going on in 2019 was the new sketch and the new direction. They had brought Betsy Blair back in. And then towards the end of 2019, they sent Libby's phone off to DHS in Washington, D.C. They had, let's see, who was it on? It might have been Cecil after that, who he did another extraction separate from that, but they tasked him with a very narrow, he was looking at a very specific time frame. His purview was much more narrow. Bunner also did an extraction a month before that. So they had a lot of different people doing the same thing in different ways. But then on top of Cecil, Bunner, and DHS, they also had FBI cast come in, and they were doing geofence warrants. And I'm still frustrated about all that, because in the prosecutor's filing to have it excluded from trial, he called all of it tower data from AT&T. Geolocation data from Google is not tower data from AT&T. Those are two different things.
It's not even close.
It's not even close, but that's the way he characterized it, and Goal ruled on it based on that. It irritates me to no end, but Horan even testified, and he said that one of the people mentioned by Murphy, when Murphy was on the stand, and the people Murphy was talking about was the Frank suspects, he said they believed that one of them was caught by the cemetery in the geofence. And because it's all excluded, we don't know anything about it. And I don't know how long that stuff is going to be off limits for us to dig through because of the appeal, or I'm not sure which next steps they're going to take first, or if they're going to do them simultaneously, or this Davis Hatton, whatever Osberg was talking about. I'm not sure which specific steps are going to take. But until then, we have all of this information that we know. This is the first time I'm aware of where the jury has been less informed than the public. And we don't even know everything because of the gag order. But everything is backwards. Something is very, very wrong.
Yeah, it's very wrong. And now
this goes back, okay, All Eyes, this goes back to your original discussion when you were talking about where you were at the very beginning of when they first arrested Rick Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, yeah, I assume they got the right guy. Good for them. They got the right guy. We're going to get justice for Abby and Libby.
Yep.
And then the probable cause affidavit came out, and we're all like, what? And then everything that came out after that, all we want is for the police to do a proper investigation and provide the proper evidence for the guy that they arrested. And there are lots of us that are still waiting for that.
Yeah, they didn't get that. I am still seething over trial. They had 2 years to prepare for this, and they doubled down on we spent all this money, we investigated all these people, all this time, and their theory is that we had no clue whatsoever who actually did this or why until we arrested this person, and a year later they explained it to a prison psychologist. In between involuntary tranquilizers. One of the statements that came out, I have very mixed emotions about, where understandably the family wants answers. He said he wanted to confess. He wanted to tell us the rest, like, I'm all ears. And I understand that on a human level. If you think someone has answers, you would want them. Please, I will make time. The thing is, 61 confessions is 60 wrong guesses. He didn't actually know. He had people taunting him with his own discovery. He was being tranquilized, and we have this creepy ass psychologist who not only was she doing weird stuff with the defendant, she was dumpster diving through Keegan Klein's files. That is a level of like creepy, violating boundaries, and she's a professional license. I cannot be nice about that. There's no nice way to describe a professional crossing those kind of boundaries. What? Because she doesn't think these defendants are humans? She doesn't have ethics don't apply to inmates? Like, that is very concerning to me. The fact that she felt so comfortable doing that, but she was also engaging in discussions with him about this stuff. And at one point, she even told Mr. Allen, you confessed. Did you know that? You probably shouldn't do that. He was like, wait, what? Did I sign something? He was very confused because she, unprompted, met with him and said, but you confessed. Like, according to her own notes, according to the trial testimony and all the media reports, she unprompted said that to him. And but the fact that he responded but he said, I didn't sign anything, right? And she took that as a sign that he was actually He was like, "Oh, he's manipulating me because he's all he cares about is whether or not he signed something." And so then
How
she
is that
said,
allowed in court? How is that communication
"I don't know
between
how
a
any
doctor
of
and a
this
patient
is." That's what I'm saying.
allowed
Like
in court?
this is
I
so.
just sat through Lori Vallow Daybell's hearing
Oh yeah.
in Maricopa Superior Court, and there was a back and forth on Friday, a Friday and a half ago or whatever it was, where it was all about the redactions that were in her Rule 11 hearing. And Rule 11 is a competency hearing.
Yeah.
And the defense and the prosecution had to agree on what was redacted from that, so people wouldn't see anything that had to do with any type of statements about crimes committed in Idaho, because this is in Arizona. And I'm like, Rick Allen didn't even get 1/10 of this protection in his stuff.
Right.
He
So
didn't.
crazy.
He was violated left and right from day one.
From
They
day one.
kidnapped him. They kept him who knows where for 2 days. I don't know if they kept him, like the U.S. Marshals were on site. I don't know if they held him for the first 2 days. I don't know if ISP held him for the first 2 days, but he was booked into Carroll County on the 28th for his hearing. And then he was swept off to White County Jail. And he was held at White County until November 3rd. And then he's at the RDC having an intake. He's got people doing straight up evaluations with him. And he has not had a single discussion or any counsel. And it wouldn't be another 22 days before he had a truly private conversation with his attorneys that were appointed the 14th. So he was put under 24-hour surveillance for at least, a little more than 10 days. And so everything he said, and the other thing I'm concerned about is Brian Harshman said on the 14th that he told his wife that if it gets too much for her, just let him know, and he'll tell them whatever they need to, whatever they want to know.
Exactly.
That's the way he characterized it.
Yep.
He listened to these recordings, and that was the way he understood it, because that's what confirmation bias is. But when other people at trial heard it, he actually said, "I'll tell them whatever they want to hear."
Mm-hmm.
Those are two very, very different things.
Yep.
And so that's also why I'm on this kick where I don't even trust Jody's transcripts anymore, because even if she was listening to the audio, we have an example of even the lead investigator. He was listening to audio and he got it wrong. How do we know? Like, we need the audio too. I don't trust these people.
Definitely need the audio. And that was the one thing, like Joe brought up, Lori Vallow, when she was in Idaho, she didn't want cameras in the courtroom, so she got her way.
Yeah.
But we got audio at the end of the day. You know, the judge did
At
really
the end of every court day, right?
Right. At the end of every court date, we had audio in that case. And Chad Daybell was different. He didn't mind the cameras, so we had cameras. Kohberger's got cameras. But at least give us audio if you're not going to give us a camera, you know? And
well, the fact that they've gone so far out of line with violating his rights and his privacy, we shouldn't know half of the stuff we do know, because they failed to protect him, especially this psychologist. But the fact that we do now, it's a lot of he said, she said, and I'm not taking their word for anything. I need to hear it and see it for myself before I say anything.
Well, I was really, and I was surprised at first, and I had to think about it. I'm like, well, I wonder if it's because it would have brought up the Odenism at trial is why they didn't call Sergeant Randy Jones to testify. He's mentioned all in the Franks motion. I've seen what he's about. I know what he's proud of, what he does. I've seen all of his tattoos. I've seen all of his girl and her tattoos as well. But he didn't come into trial. And I thought, well, why not? You know, then I thought about it. Well, if that would have introduced the third party theory, which the judge said you can't. So on appeal, you damn right, I'm calling that man to come testify. I'm taking a deposition, something, you know, along
an
appeal.
Interesting character.
The thing about with the protection of the rights, one thing that really bothered me is Rick Allen and Bryan Kohberger were arrested a month apart.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to focus on the Idaho 4 case, and rightfully so. I'm right there with them. But the direction I saw it taking, and all that I saw being done to every young adult in Idaho, including the victims, while Kohberger was over here getting his way in the jail, Rick Allen's over here. We're like, where is this man? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I followed
Everybody,
the Idaho case until he was arrested, and then I
well,
just couldn't keep up with both of them anymore because it was
well,
just it got
yeah.
crazy over here.
There's not a lot to keep up with in Idaho for if you take away the crazy. Because let me tell you this: every alternate theory you're going to hear about Idaho, you're never going to see in a court filing.
Right.
Ann Taylor's not brought me that court filing yet for me to get behind the way I got in Delphi.
Yeah.
Our Frank's motion is sealed right now, but I guarantee you it's nothing like this Frank's motion.
Yeah.
You know, nothing. But the problem is when people didn't have a legitimate argument in the Kohberger case, then it was, oh, well, we're here for his rights. Are you now? Because guess what? He's got them. He's in a county jail. He gets to wear a suit and tie to every court appearance. He's getting his vegan meals. He's in tiny little Idaho, Latah County jail. Now he's in Ada County, but okay, he's still getting the same rights offered to him. And he's getting to meet privately with his attorneys as long as he needs, all those things. And I tried to point that out to people. Wait, how can you claim you're here for the rights here? Because if I'm going to be for the rights in one case, I want them in all cases.
Right.
I'm not going to base it on the way the guy looks that's accused.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what made Bryan Kohberger so damn different than Richard Allen? Absolutely nothing. They're both innocent until proven guilty, but they were both treated vastly different within their systems, you know, and by social media. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
People who, you know, and I get it. It's hard to follow two cases and keep up with everything. But in Idaho, I had to sit all those. I looked into all those theories. You know, I couldn't come up with anything ever. Just like, hey, yeah, whatever. So it's whatever. I now base anything I say or do on my show comes out of documents in that case, which is not a whole lot right now. You know,
Yeah.
for people to say they can't be concerned about Richard Allen's rights, that's ridiculous.
You have to be.
That's what it is about, really, you know? And if you don't want the government or a prosecution team or law enforcement to be able to come into your home and say and do whatever they want because you were conveniently at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, you know? It's just, it can't happen. And that the lack of transparency fueled the fire.
Yeah. Well, the problem too is a lot of people confuse this makes sense to me and this is what happened. They're like, well, he was there, makes sense, adds up just fine. You have to ignore a lot of stuff to maintain that belief in this case. Because yeah, if you do think he was there and all these things that they said in the PCA, yeah, that they sure did. They took away all presumption of innocence in that PCA. Problem is when you start trying to vet the information in the PCA, it's not what they presented it as.
Yeah.
They had to change witness statements. They had to omit other information that was exculpatory. They failed to mention he was long gone by the time the girls were dropped off. And it's a lot of times people don't, once they've made up their mind, as soon as something clicks in a way that, okay, this is a complete picture, it is very difficult for them to unlearn it, to unthink it, to unsee it. Kind of like once they picture Richard Allen walking on the bridge, their brain can no longer tell the difference between what they're picturing and what they're looking at. And it's not something that can't be overcome. It's just something that requires people to be willingly self-aware and mindful that we all have bias and we all have to do things to manage those bias. Like
exactly.
But some people think they're not biased at all and they're just common sense and they're, you know, but the problem is one of the experts who testified at one of the pretrial hearings for Kohberger she talked a lot about bias and she did a real excellent job about how explaining how people who don't think they're biased actually have a more warped perception of themselves and everything around them. But, you know, when they think they're not biased, you know, if they have a robe or a badge, those people are very difficult to go up against because they have their extended and unmerited credibility, and it's difficult. It's very frustrating to overcome. These people just defer to them. Well, they believe it. Like, okay, well, Ferenczi believed that the Frank suspects, like, if you want to have that conversation, let's have it.
Right.
We're going to defer to authority here.
It's a scary place in America if we have people who can't be open-minded.
Well, they're not always right
total-
according to their own
No.
data.
Yeah.
You do not want, they do not, until they start coming up with some own data from themselves that they publish that gives us a reason to, it's reckless to assume they're right, because they're not.
Well, it comes down to the evidence. No matter what case we go into, what we talk about, all the pretrial stuff, everything that goes down, when it comes to trial, that evidence has to be there. And I always go back to like the case. I'm in Florida. I knew halfway through Casey Anthony's trial she was going to walk because they failed to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They couldn't even tie physical evidence to her. And I was really nervous because I knew they were going to probably find her not guilty if they were an unbiased jury and solely basing their decision on that evidence presented in court.
Yeah.
And she walked. She was found not guilty. And I don't disagree with it. That does not mean I don't think she was guilty of something, because I do.
Right, but if we're going to bend the law just because we're like, oh, it didn't catch the person we wanted, so we're going to bend it, like that's
You can't. That's
you can't be
dangerous.
doing that.
It's dangerous to accept it
Like
just because you want
the
to.
officers should have gotten some physical evidence. Like before you start this process, get what you need to win your case, instead of having to lower the bar.
Base it on junk science and new, because a lot of that stuff in there that they tried to introduce or did get to introduce was really very confusing junk sciencey type stuff.
Yeah.
And to watch the different experts test, I needed to hear those experts, right? And I heard both from both. And I'm telling you that the ones the prosecution brought in were not convincing at all, and they were able to poke holes in their stuff. And I felt like the jury in Delphi was kind of smart. They were asking good questions, and I wasn't there to witness the evidence myself. I just got the daily reports like the rest of you guys did. But from what we were hearing, I really felt like they would I thought they would have had a different decision, but I was wrong.
I think I overestimated them.
Yeah.
I think Lana was the first person I saw stream anything where she voiced concern. She was like, they're asking questions that I'm not so sure about. And I remember thinking, I wonder if she heard something others didn't, or if this is just a case of, two different people, like reasonable minds can disagree. And, because she's pretty, like, she is pro due process, like due process or bust. And even she was expressing concern, and I wish I would have
in transparency
heeded more of that, because I continued overestimating these jurors.
Are you talking about Lana from Truth and Transparency?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't.
I forget which day of testimony it was that she was talking about these questions. And when I went back to listen to it to figure out how not that I missed it, but I just disregarded it. I'm like, no. I'm going to keep the faith.
Yeah.
I'm like, I believe in these jurors.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
make that mistake again.
I know, right? You can't. I guess maybe we think they're going to feel like we do, and they're going to see this as sketchy evidence.
Well, confessions break people's brains, and that's why police want them so badly. That is why they send them off to be specialized for these specialized training seminars, because they don't care if the confession is true or not. They care if they get it or not, and if they can get it legitimately. Because once you have it, it is very difficult for people. A lot of people think they would never confess to a crime they didn't commit. And a lot of them can't even imagine. Most of us can imagine what it's like to be hangry. If we're very hangry, we get very cranky. We'll say and do whatever. Like, I just want to go. I just want to whatever. Yeah. Like, you will, just if you're hangry, you'll compromise some things. Maybe not confess to something. But if these people can imagine, go sit in your closet for 48 hours and do not come out. You don't get your phone. And imagine people are just yelling horrible things at you the whole time. You don't know how long you've been in there. But then imagine 6 months of that. You don't know when you get to see your family, and the last time you saw them, you didn't know it was going to be the last time you saw them. These people kidnapped you and put you through this
wrongful. You can't deny people when people would come at about questioning that, right? Like you're saying,
they've never been in that position. How can they know they would never confess?
Go look up how many convictions have been overturned based on false confessions.
Yes, and a lot of times those people who did falsely confess, the reason they would say things,
they were tortured.
Yes, well, they were tortured, but also one of the things about the impact statements is they
Mhm.
kept saying, well, he wanted to clear his conscience. First of all,
Yeah.
the person who did this crime did not have a conscience. He's not trying to clear it. I think that's ridiculous to assume that the person who actually did
That's true.
this is trying to get it off his chest.
Yeah.
But, innocent people who are wrongfully convicted, once they give up hope, they think, well, the only purpose I can serve now is a silver lining, and I'm going to give families this resolution that they're never going to get otherwise. Like, even in their own minds,
Mhm.
like, a good person will be like, well, what else? If nobody's going to believe me, there's no hope for me. What
Right.
is the only contribution I can make now? And it's kind of like when a loved one has dementia. If they mistake you for someone else, you just go with it.
You do. My grandfather
'Cause what
passed
else are
away
you gonna
from
do?
Alzheimer's, and that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Don't ever correct them and tell them they're wrong and all these things. There's been so many times I had to play along.
Yeah.
My grandfather was ready to go to Atlanta one night because we had a whole bunch of cars to go get. Let's just put it that way. And I was floored because it was like he was telling me a legit story that he had
Yep.
actually done before.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like on the legal side. And I'm like, my grandpa going, you want me to do what? Okay. Well, so I had to try to change the subject and get him off of that. But it was like 2 o'clock in the
Grandpa, don't confess.
morning, he was ready to go at the table at 2 a.m. I'm like, damn, Lord, I don't even want to know. But yeah, it's true. And I've seen the documentaries on when which was it? I can't remember his name. The guy he confessed a bunch of times, but they ended up showing, like, they were recording all this stuff, right? And it was like years and years and years ago. It was old case, but to show how they were able to convince someone to confess
Yeah.
without that person knowing they were being convinced to confess. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? How they break them.
Yeah.
And then if you got anybody that's already, and look we saw what they were doing to Kathy and Rick.
Mhm.
Interrogations, taking Kathy into another room, telling
Yep.
her, we absolutely know that was your husband on the bridge. We know this. We know that was his pistol or his bullet. We already know this is confirmed. And they didn't. It's like,
Right.
what?
But once you mess with someone's sense of reality and then
Right.
you're able to start messing with their memories, you can actually brainwash them into believing these things that are not true.
And they wanted her to believe they knew for a fact that was his bullet. She could go right back in there and say, honey, but it's your bullet, which is what she did, and then Rick's like, no, but so it's crazy. I felt so, when I heard that come out in the testimony, that really bothered me.
Oh, my blood was boiling.
Oh, girl, I
Well,
mean,
we're gonna have to have reform in this country because we are the only progressive. I'm not going to say progressive because
Developed.
we're not. Yes, we're the only developed country that allows the police to lie to
Yeah.
suspects.
yeah,
It's because we
The
care more
the
about
read technique-
convictions
the
than
re-
we do
Yep.
about justice.
Yep.
Like, even some of the laws and some of the ways, the avenues for appeals, you would think, okay, well, we just clear this up with a judge. A judge is reasonable. Let's just tell them what happened, explain it to them, and they'll fix it. No, they don't care about the justice part. They
Judge
just care
Gold
about the
isn't
procedure.
reasonable. Judge Gold isn't reasonable. Sorry, but
Yeah, I know.
there's so I have friends that live in Carroll County and professional contacts that live in Carroll County. And I've kind of been really delicate with how I approach this discussion with them because we know there are people that are severely polarized over this case. There are
Yeah.
people that believe he's absolutely 100%
Yeah.
guilty, and there are people that believe he's absolutely 100% innocent. But most of the people that are kind of in the middle and we're trying to figure it out as we went along with the case, like I was, are like Judge Gold's actions in this case are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like her rulings in this case are ridiculous. And that's like at the ground roots level. That's at the grassroots level. Like those are people there in Carroll County who have nothing to do with electing Judge Gold because she's up in Allen County. She's up in Fort Wayne. She's 2.5 hours north. Like nobody in Carroll County.
Yeah, that should have been our
elected
first red flag with the jury, though. Came from a
Right,
county that
yeah.
elected her.
I'm sorry,
Right,
but if Judge Gull was honestly, because I've thought about this so much. I mean, I know we all have. What gives her that power and that right? How can she do this? Well, how can she do this? And how can she get away with it? Is it absolutely everything? Is everything she did from A to B, beginning to end, was all that on the up and up and allowable? If it was
No.
allowable under Indiana law, Indianans need to be pushing for some changes, like real fast. Where's the checks and balances? Who's checking her?
They
Who's
think
her
the
boss?
voters are going to do that, but that would then require voters who are on the same page as her to do that, even though they were misinformed.
Well, prosecution and defense are only allowed to do certain things under the laws and the rulings. I get each judge can make rulings.
Oh, she took way advantage of that discretion.
Right. She took way advantage of that, and she pushed things to a limit to where they can't take her to the Supreme Court. They've already tried, right? They wanted her.
Even when they did, she only had to cure 20% of the issues. That is, could you lower the bar any lower? It's incredible to me that she cured such a tiny fraction of all of the shit she did.
I'd fight
and they're
her
good enough.
U.S. Supreme Court. So we're fixing to bypass the Indiana State Court. We're going all the way, lady, because it'll be, maybe because of all her actions or inactions, it actually helps the defense in the long run when they go up for appeal. Because they did do a good job of putting everything on the record, even all their concerns, and even asking her to recuse herself twice and all these things that they were doing and getting on the record. It's like, how can she continue to keep getting away with all this? Maybe she won't in the long run. Maybe it will all come back to bite her in the ass in the end. And that's what I hope can happen. Because I don't see how one judge could get away with so much.
There's rumors that she wants to be on the Indiana Supreme Court someday.
Oh yeah,
she tried already, I believe.
Yeah,
she's got a beef with that other lady that's on there. What's her name?
Loretta Rush. Is that her?
Rush, yeah. So, maybe
I have a personal story about her because she's from Lafayette, but we won't get into that right now.
Well, it's everything Gold did doesn't make sense to a lot of us that follow court cases in general.
Well, I'm not relying on Scoyne because they have.
Nope.
I don't know. I do not understand them either because
they had a chance to set things right, and they
had more than one.
Yep.
And even when in July, when defense filed after the other motion, they tried to file. Okay, can someone come get this judge? Come get your judge. She's lazy. And Justin Faulkner, he found that she was in fact lazy, but instead of doing anything about it with the judge, he punished the defendant because his attorneys continued working and treating the court as an interim for, okay, while you guys replace her, we're going to continue working because we have trial coming up and we have deadlines and we have obligations. So they continued submitting things to the court, not to Gull herself. They were treating it as the institution in the meantime. And his defense attorneys were punished for that because they continued working. And so even that is the way they interpret the laws is in order. I'm concerned that because this is such a disaster and there were so many gross violations on the state, so much misconduct. It was plagued from day one with misconduct, with errors. They're going to go into damage control mode and they're just going to appoint someone who's more competent in the fix. They're going to legitimize it. That is my concern. I'm hopeful that they will fix it, but I'm just cautious after overestimating every step of this justice system, watching it play out, watching her rubber stamp nonsense all the way through. I'm just nervous. I'm still nervous.
Yeah, it's not, and rightfully so. I mean,
people should get outraged and still speak out, but it just... They almost take that as if there's outrage, they double down because they don't want to bow to public outrage. But the thing is, the fact that they're doing that, they are responding to it either way, just in the wrong direction.
Well, so somebody made a point in there. Well, it's up to the voters to decide. She was appointed by Governor Daniels back, I don't know, 20-something years ago, 25 years ago, maybe-ish. And she has won every election since then. So she gets Well,
I'm pretty sure she was unopposed last time.
Yeah, probably so. And so
this last time or the time before?
She said she's not doing this to get votes. She already knows she's got the vote. She already knows she's an incumbent and she's going to get reelected because that happens 99.9% of the time in Indiana.
Well, she's not doing it to uphold the law, that's for sure.
Nope. Nope. So what is that? A power trip? It's got to be something along those lines.
Power
There's
trip
gotta
or
be.
high priestess, you take your pick. I hope that
Oh,
something.
Salty, you went there. You went there.
I will always go there. I can't help it. I mean, I know all about high priestess lady. We can roll, but we'll see who's good, who's stronger, me or you. But I'm not a high priestess, y'all. I'm joking. It's like I was being an asshole. But I don't know. I'm hoping that when they do file the appeals process starts happening legally, they got something that will help them along the way, and as far as due process went.
I just want a
And
judge who cares about the law. I
exactly.
don't think that is
We
too
need
much to
that.
ask. I don't think we've gotten one of those yet.
Exactly. And I don't want them connected to anybody down there that
Right.
she's connected to. Y'all got to quit it, because to come out there in your little press conference and we didn't lie, we didn't do anything, whatever. Look, whatever, dude. I'm fixing to watch you say it again so I can, I'll make a crystal grid to go against him. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But you can't do all that. You shouldn't be able to get away with it over and over and over, and so much was done. I just hope they can find the legal avenue to get them there and bring somebody in who does care about the law, and is not connected to anybody there already existing in the case, and any of the prosecution, all that needs to be changed. None of
Well, if
that's
these things are hard, and if I hear harmless error one more time, I'm going to
I
scream,
know.
because their version of harmless error is not the same as people who have to live subjected to those errors. It's not harmless. The fact that they can just dismiss shit as harmless in some cases is very frustrating, and it makes me wonder, like, what planet do they live on? Do they know any normal people? Are they ever around people who are not under their authority, or like a peer group where of course they're gonna, just like the police, every time they make an arrest, they make it about them. They got to pat themselves on the back, and they've got it. Oh, we're the best, even though it's
There is absolutely a brotherhood of attorneys and judges. Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the public defenders get the worst end of that. They get the short
Yeah.
end of that stick every freaking time.
They really do.
And I think we had
They're the ones doing it for the love of the game, and that's what's so sad.
Exactly.
Like, you don't do it for pennies unless you genuinely believe in the law and our values and all of the wonderful things that the system could be. That is just,
And then they're at the mercy of the
Touch that
judge to
hair.
get money to
yeah.
hire what they need to do, and then also
Well,
she
Nick
wouldn't give
McClellan
it.
can just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, somebody at ISP, can you run this for me real quick? Can you
Right.
generate this report?" He doesn't have to ask for permission.
No.
She wouldn't award extra money for experts for professional experts.
Or allow their experts in. I mean, come on, you know.
Both. Yeah, both. Okay, you came up with money for him, but yeah, they're not getting in anyway.
Yeah.
Your metallurgy guy is
I
not
still do
getting
not
in.
understand how she excluded Tobin,
And if I was,
especially
sorry,
with the
if I
same
was
rule that she admitted Oberg.
right. If I'm a juror and you can't bring me an expert from both sides, what am I even doing here? Because now you're wanting me to be an echo chamber and you're trying to push a narrative on me. I need to hear from both sides.
Well,
That
she
is
was
the only way I
allowing
can make a
Oberg
fair
to
decision.
testify to certain things.
Yeah.
That the fact that she's allowed to testify to them at all, you can't cross-examine her, because if you try to question her about the methodology and the actual it's semantics, not science. When you're
Yeah.
talking tool marks and you only have one point of comparison, you are not doing science. But you can't question her, because she's just going to say, no, it's legit. She's just going to reaffirm the
Yeah.
pseudoscience she's doing. And if you don't have an expert to come in and explain why it's not actually even science, what she did to this, and the fact that her work notes disproved that it was a match, like, the jury is just going to think, well, they couldn't get an expert to back them up. That's how they took it.
That's how they take it.
And that was
that's why
harmful to the defense.
Very harmful. You should absolutely, both sides have every right to walk in there and each one present their experts.
Especially if that's the sole piece of evidence you have
Exactly.
placing him at the scene. The fact that it doesn't place him at the scene because they can't, even their geofence data clears him. It was the last shred of cope that they were able to get admitted.
And cops be loving their geofence, except Nick. I don't know. We don't need that geofence. Yes, we do. Now we need it more than ever.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's very frustrating, all of it. It's
'Cause
very
I think
frustrating.
even the investigators, because so one came out and so True Grit Crime, is she still in here? She also did an interview with a former Delphi investigator. Is that is that
Yes.
correct? Because I watched most of that. Something came up and I had to get off. I was on my phone watching it, and I had to end up stopping. But I did email True Grit. If you're in here, I sent you an email. Check it, please. I need to drop a link to her channel as well, guys. She did an interview with another one of the investigators,
Yes.
but they're each one saying, things, and the things that we all it's flooring some of the, and
Yeah.
now that more will come out, and even hearing the investigator like finding out this blood spatter expert was at her damn house. Like,
Yeah,
what?
I'm gonna need some more information about that for sure.
Yeah, there's just a lot, but I just hope that the defense
Crazy.
really gets somewhere with a good appeals process, and that they have good. I think they have good attorneys involved that want to be involved and can advise them and all the things that need to be done. Because don't you have to be an appeals attorney to fight it, right? So they won't actually be the lead attorneys on appeal, would they?
I'm not sure. I think everybody who has lent a hand up until now, like even Osberg and Kara, they weren't part of the actual defense.
Right.
They came on board for the contempt and for the original action. They're still following and lending whatever assistance they can, whether it's referrals or helping them find the right resources and get to the right place. I think everyone, including Baldwin and Rosie, they're so invested. They believe the man's innocent and he did get railroaded. We all watched it. But I can't imagine they would walk away for any reason. Like, whatever they can help with, they will. Even Lobrato and Scrimmin were offering, even after they were removed when the Supreme Court reinstated them, even they were like, call us, let me know if you need anything. And I believe they meant it because they got a glimpse at the discovery and there's no actual evidence against this man. It is all innuendo. Like, even their circumstantial evidence is not even what they presented it as. It requires innuendo and just trust me, bro. None of it was substantiated, even at trial. And I think they knew that next to Baldwin and Rosie, they're the next people who know that firsthand. So I don't know exactly which. You have to have certain attorneys but I think it depends on whether you're going to go appeal versus habeas. If I don't want to misspeak because Osberg will pop out of nowhere.
But they have to
be frustrated.
They have to submit an appeal, and it has to be approved for appeal, right? Like, there has to be some underlying legal issue where they're claiming that, okay, the lower court erred. Judge Gull and the jury erred in something. She didn't.
It's different in Indiana from others, so that's also why I'm hesitant to get into that. But I just always refer people to Kara has a good blog post about the different remedies that are available and if, like, what jurisdiction you're in, depending on what route you take. And they're doing direct appeal first. I think what is the Davis Hatton? I don't know if that's still on the table or not, or if that's just something that they're keeping on the table, like just in case, like they're not going to say no to anything. Like, if there's an avenue that they have a shot at, they're going to take it. But direct appeal comes first. I don't think in Indiana that excludes them from doing the motion to correct error, but I guess direct appeal is directly first. Like, I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's the one. That's the one that had to be filed within like the first 30 days or of the verdict.
The motion to correct error has to be filed within 30 days, and the direct appeal has to be within 30 days or within 30 days of the motion to correct error being denied or deemed denied. I hate unnecessary technical language, but yeah. They say, like, basically denied.
That resonates with me. I mean, I hear it and I understand it. So, hey, DB, good to see you in here.
Yeah, welcome in all of you who have come in midstream and are joining us now. Welcome in. We appreciate you coming in. My co-host and guest tonight, Joe Schmo, is here with us, and All Eyes is here with us as well. And it's been a great conversation.
I'm
went
trying to
over.
behave myself.
Girl, me too. I like. I don't even care anymore. So it depends on my mood. I get in the mood in December, so I've been in the mood. But I tried to. Well, I did partake in something before I started the stream to help keep myself nice and calm and cooking. My saltiness will slip through. I can't help it.
Same.
And that's fine. You just let it roll here. It's all good. I don't have too many rules over here. I don't like having rules. I don't, we're not crazy. We're not all going to come out here and do crazy talk, but I don't care. You let it go. Let it flow.
Like, as long as people can talk about the issues, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
because that's really why we're all here, is we all wanted to see the right person go away for this. And it just was a circus, and it was a circus long before there were even defense attorneys appointed. I think people forget that. They seem to think this all started when the defense was appointed, and that is not true. But my focus right now is just hammering what we do know. We know that there is no physical or digital evidence connecting this man to the victims or the crime. We know that members of the core team lied. We know even in filings, the prosecutor lied. He got a ruling based on false information. The geofence or the geolocation data from Google, that's not tower data from AT&T. There's just all of these things that just were allowed, one thing after another, and defense was not allowed to even question it. And it was rubber stamped one error at a time. And now it's just going to require a judge who is willing to acknowledge them. I'm concerned about that, though, because they don't like to go against other judges.
No, they don't. And it's Indiana too. So it's a tight, I'm telling you, it's a tighter knit group. Like the judges and attorneys and prosecutors in Indiana are a tight knit group.
Yeah.
That's why Rick Allen was treated the way he was from the date of his arrest, when everybody all of a sudden forgot all of the third party suspects.
Yep.
And testified on the stand. Oh no, I thought those two sketches were the same guy from the first day.
That was outrageous.
And
They're
then
obviously not the same person.
And then
so
Liggett.
stupid.
So Liggett was testifying the day I was there. Liggett was testifying about the video, and he said, I put on some special headphones and I listened to that like 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
And Baldwin asked him, is it possible there was another man standing at the south end of the bridge that isn't Bridge Guy? And Tony Liggett said on the stand, it's not humanly possible.
It's not humanly possible for the person that was way in the distance to get there in time to say it. That's what's not humanly possible.
That's as close to perjury as you can get.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, when I listen, I dropped the link to All Eyes channel a couple times. I dropped True Grit Crime, her channel, a second ago, and Joe's as well. Go check out what True Grit did. The lady she interviewed had a really interesting take on the Bridge Guy video.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
I didn't realize they had that report.
I don't want to, let me just clarify real quick. So All Eyes had a video come down a little earlier. True Grit has that live. I'm not playing you guys stuff because I don't want to take your views. I want people to go over and check you out and see it for themselves. And I encourage you guys to do that, because All Eyes did do a video earlier, like I said, on Greg Ferenczi. It's really a great piece.
That was just for Vinny Politan, who seems to have never heard of it before.
Well, he's not the only one. People there are now heard that and are curious, right?
Yeah.
So we need to I bet you Michelle watches your video. I bet you she does.
I'm already looking forward to
her shout out to you before. Yeah, and True Grit had a great live with what was her name? I'm sorry, I can't recall her name. The other investigator that worked on the case, Christine. Okay, that was her name. Yeah, but she I'm sorry, but True Grit did ask her about the video, and she gave a good response to that, and it was the same. She described it though the same way I heard Lawyer Lee describe it and Bob Motta describe it.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions though about that report that she's talking about. I have so many questions about it.
Yeah,
I don't know when we get to ask those in a way that we can actually get answers.
Well, she
But,
said that if she
man.
was asked any questions that she couldn't answer, she would just say, I can't answer that, but I think what they won't or don't want to answer is not that they can't, because the gag order's lifted, but what they don't want to do is say things that they might be getting ready to use on
For the
appeal,
appeal, yeah.
right? They got to be really careful going forward with that. And that would be the only reason you hear people who are supporting Rick Allen in the defense hold back a little bit, is because that's stuff that's really going to be brought out in appeal. And you
Yeah.
don't want to screw it up in any kind of way.
Well, after the state has suborned perjury time and time again with all of their information, they're like, oh, it's fine. We'll just get someone to change their story anytime they bring it up. Anytime there's an actual problem that needs to be addressed. Like if it's exculpatory, they're like, nope, it's not. We'll just get Purdy up here to explain it all away. I still can't believe a lot of Purdy's testimony. That one gets my blood boiling too. Some of the stuff they put him up there to say, just to walk stuff back. I'm like, I don't know if they don't have a spine, if they don't have a moral compass, but the fact that they can do that, they think the ends justifies the means. It makes my blood boil.
I don't know. I feel like, did the prosecution fix it so well with their little altered videos and things that the jurors just really wanted to believe they were correct. This is really the guy. And circumstantially, he was there. But yeah, he said he was there 5 years ago. We all know how that played out, so.
Yeah, but earlier in the day, like there's still people running around saying that he placed himself there wearing the bridge guy costume. And no, he did not. He placed himself earlier in the day, and Liggett and Mullen put him in the bridge guy costume. He never said he was wearing that. They did.
And Doolin put him there later.
Yeah, well, freaking Doolin.
Yeah.
Did Doolin even file that? We don't even know at this point. Okay, we know that Rick Allen met with him. We assume, because that's what they've told us. Well, Rick Allen hasn't come out and said, hey, I did meet with that guy. That's what I did. But they're saying that they did meet. Well, I don't know that this little found tip was written 5 years ago prior.
I have so many questions about that because number one, in the media reports, Kathy Shank doesn't just talk about finding the tip that's marked cleared. She also makes statements alluding to the fact that she checked the database and it was different. How could she know it was different in the database than what she was looking at in the folder unless she looked at both? And then she's given interviews now. She had access to this. They were able to look at it and access it. We don't know. The fact that Doolin forgot all this time, by the time they showed him his report, if he pulled it up on his computer, they could have contributed to it in between finding it and asking him to look at it. And if he doesn't have his own independent memory, I don't trust it.
Before you play this video, Salty, I got a little story. So the first day I went to trial, I didn't make it in the first half of the day. I had to stand in line and get in the second half of the day. But while I'm going upstairs and their little escapade that they had us going up and down the stairs to get in line, Kathy Shank was coming down the stairs from the third floor. So she sat waiting to be a witness in this like every single day. And she sat out in the rotunda, I think, every single day. But she went to go come down the stairs right in front of me from the third floor, and she almost slipped and fell.
Uh-oh.
Like, she's an elderly lady, and I would have had to catch her, and I was like ready to catch her to keep her from hurting herself.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't been there and she had slipped and fell, I mean, it was bad. It was going to be bad.
Well, probably because she should have been at home and not been put to work with some of the stuff she was doing in the first place.
She was there every single day for the trial, sitting out in the rotunda waiting to testify. All right. That's my story.
Right. So, Kate, for those of you who haven't seen this yet, this is Kathy Shank, and this is an interview that she did on the case. Let's see. Uh-oh, am I getting swamp signal all of a sudden?
Obviously, in the trial, I heard your testimony and the passion and the time.
Now, it's not super loud, guys. I'll get it up as far as I can get it, and you may have to turn your devices up or something, but here we go.
I'm going to hear everybody else talking about the time, and even you being so humble of this is a team effort,
Absolutely.
What was it like for you to be a part of this? I mean, obviously, you talked about it in trial, about how you came back and you wanted to volunteer. Why was that so important?
I had worked with law enforcement my entire adult career for 40 years through Department of Child Services, through Child Protection. And I knew several of the law enforcement officers, the prosecutor at the time, Rob Ives. And when I learned of this, I contacted Rob and said I'd like to help.
And that is exactly what you did. I mean, so
Yes.
much. Your role, obviously, we know from your testimony, helping file and organize and do all the things that need to be done in order for an investigation to kind of stay organized, if you will, the organizational side of things. When you were moving offices and you opened up that drawer and you came across this box, what went through your mind? And where, obviously, we know where it ended, but what went through your mind?
When I found that, I realized that I had not heard of this person. And I went to the file drawer and found the actual file for Richard Allen Whiteman at that time, as it had been written. And I read the report that Dan Doolin had made after he had spoken with him. And I, as being an investigator, I had looked at some of the statements from the girls that said they had seen a person out at the bridge. And basically, I put the two and two together, took it to Tony, and we went from there.
Outside of this, you're a member of this community for so long.
Absolutely, my entire life, yes.
What does it mean to you to be able to see all of this come to where we are today? One, misfiled report, if you will, leads to all these years of work being able to pile together. We talk a lot about all the evidence just was able to stack up. And then the final pieces of this is the guy. What is it like for you to see not only the guilty verdict on that day last month, but today to hear the sentence of 130 years?
The justice has been served. I mean, there was an amazing team that worked on this. I mean, Jerry and all of the state police and all the other agencies, and I have such high regard. And I guess what I can best say is I got back a lot more than I ever gave.
Obviously, you hear all these people talking about you, every person calling you out, thanking you.
It's very humbling, very humbling. I did it because I like to serve. I like to help people, and that's what I did.
And right place, right time, right?
I guess I basically call it divine intervention.
Yeah,
Oh my
you were just
God.
there, open that drawer, you just so happened to be the person.
I said the same thing.
What was, finally, last thing. Obviously, it went so long, so many people. I mean, 8 years almost that you're, this community, like, please, we have all these things. We have video evidence of this suspect, and we still don't have the person. What was that like for you to be able to see law enforcement and investigators kind of finish putting that puzzle together after waiting for so long?
It was amazing, and it was. I think I told Jerry it was a well-oiled machine. I couldn't believe I had worked up to the arrest in my former profession, but I had never seen this, and it was amazing what they did, and they just went into action and did what needed to be done. And here,
Okay, I can't help it. So here's my biggest problem with all of this. Yay for you, Kathy, for finding that lost tip, but your police department sucks.
By the way, two and two, you put two and two together. You decided these group of 3 girls who were there earlier were the same group of 4 girls who were there later. How is that putting 2 and 2? That math don't math.
She
3 and
remembered
4
that,
are not
yeah.
the same.
She remembered
Okay.
witness statements and all these things. But the thing is, for years, we saw numerous press conferences, and one day you'll know what we know. One day you'll be surprised at all the things we do have and we do know. Obviously,
Turns out it was all in the PCA.
didn't know nothing.
We've known the whole time.
They didn't know nothing until this lady found a piece of paper in a box in a drawer.
Did you catch that
And
part
she
about
said-
her though?
She
looked
said
at
in
Doolin's
this
report.
interview, I didn't recognize the name, but
Mhm.
what she testified to on the stand, which I was there for in person that day, that's one of the 2 days I got to be there. She said, "Oh, I knew there wasn't a Richard Allen Whiteman in Delphi because I'm familiar with all of the people in this area." That's what she said on the stand. That's not verbatim. That's a summary.
And she
Yeah.
said
But-
that she knew that when she would looked at the Whiteman, she knew there was a Whiteman Drive. So then she
Yeah.
wondered, well, is that just the street and the name's really Rick? Like that, what lady, if you were an investigator of any kind, you did it when you were employed with CPS. Maybe you were.
No, she is she's a master
I know.
investigator. She's a master investigator that they should have hired from the beginning of the investigation.
Maybe someone told her to say this.
I don't
No,
understand
no.
it.
She's a master investigator, like ISP, the FBI.
Why is she able to
miraculously
pull up
finding this
police
tip.
reports for other people? She's not supposed to be looking at this stuff, but she's able. She said, I looked at Officer Doolin's report that he did after meeting with Richard Allen. That is in the system. That's not in a file cabinet. You have to get on a computer and search it and pull it up and access it. If you're able to access it, you're able to contribute to it.
Well, because she says that she went back and looked at his report.
Mm-hmm.
So once he gave his report, what was so remarkable about it that she remembered that it even existed? And who gave that report?
Well,
5
who
years
looks
later.
up a cleared one?
5 years
Like
later.
she said, well, I remembered some girls also said they saw someone.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, they're acting as if there was only one group of girls. There wasn't. There was more than one group. And so she is just automatically assuming, Miss Investigator is assuming this group of 3 is actually a group of 4. And it's not.
Well, to me, either way, no matter how she accessed the information, what was so remarkable about Dan Doolin's report that if she read it, she had to have read it when he submitted it 5 years prior. But
I don't think she was on the case when it was submitted initially, but that's my other problem, is the way Dan Doolin responded to being represented this report. He leapt into immediate action based on what it said. Why didn't he do anything when he wrote it? If it says what they're telling us it said, why? Because I've not been able to get past this whole time. If you are in the middle of an active investigation with an active manhunt and you're looking for a man who was on the same trail at the same time as these girls went missing, and then you meet with someone who says, I was on that same trail at the exact same time that they went missing, Doolin said, after I met with him, I never thought about it again. How do you forget something like that if that is what they actually said?
And the other part is, if Rick Allen told him, yeah, I was there and I was wearing this, this, and this, and then you are bombarded with Bridge Guy video for 5 straight years, Dan never thought, wait a minute.
Like, how many checks did they need people across the country to mail in to incentivize somebody who could think of anybody they think could have been there that day at that time?
Well, there's a whole ass problem with Dan Doolin and his tip. I'm just saying.
His whole record is a problem.
Oh, I know. Reckoning of Carroll County.
And that's the other thing. He is not scared to detain somebody or to go search their house or to start stalking them. The fact that he met with someone and just let them go he just sent them on their way. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Take it easy. Have a good one.
When I saw what I saw in the Reckoning of Carroll County, and I was like, whoa. That was just too much, right along with the Frank's Motion stuff. You know what I mean? Not like, oh my God, this is
outrageous.
It's like, oh my God, this is really who these people are.
This is how they operate, and they think it's normal. They think any thought that pops into their head is by default specialized because they've been trained. So they think, well, I'm an officer, so if I think it, that's professional judgment, and it's automatically some sort of insightful. And I wanted to throw up when she said divine intervention, because divine intervention would have been something that added up. It does not add up. God's going to intervene. It's going to make some sense. This makes no sense. What is she talking about?
You're right. And that I had the same reaction when she said that. I'm tired of all of them saying things like that.
And the second they say that, anybody who counters it, you're going against divine intervention. Okay, well, that would... the fact that you think it's that's debatable, number one. But once they say it, then going against it, then that's the other problem. They have this confirmation bias. They just keep moving the goalposts without even... She doesn't even seem to be aware of it in this interview. And it's terrifying because they've ruined an innocent man's life. This man was home before these girls that she remembered talking about seeing somebody were even there. Like this person, like there was more than one man and more than one group of girls who were on this trail at this time.
I guess
she doesn't seem to be aware of that.
When she found this tip narrative that was misplaced, I guess it said
it wasn't misplaced.
Right. Well, just
that's what they said it was.
About.
Murder Sheet is the one who started that.
Yeah,
it's not true.
I haven't listened to them in so long.
I only listened to the December 1st thing where State was leaking information on the same day that Nick McClellan was throwing a hissy fit about Defense releasing a press release.
Yeah.
Well, they were releasing some very sensitive information.
I've listened to a couple of things they've done in the past for research purposes. Yeah, but as far as listening to them on
same,
yeah, exactly, right.
Research purposes
it's only for research, man, and it can only take so much of it. And it's got to go, but I'll be wanting to leave comments on their YouTube and stuff. You know,
they don't let people do that.
They don't. Good.
Spoon feeding only.
Really? Screw them. When they was during the trial, I think it was the last day of the trial, and somebody gotten video of them where they're like just looking all bummed out because I don't guess they got their way about something of getting in there. But some kid runs up and taps them on the shoulder, and he points and they turn and they run. And I was like, where the hell are they running to?
Dumpster
a little while
diving.
later, they were on damn NBC or something later on. Somebody interviewed them and it was wearing the same clothes and all. I was like, wait a minute. That's when I saw them running in that one video. I guess they were running to their interview. Like, we got to get there. But no, you only watch them for research purposes. And then, then I just get mad. Like, who do people think they are? But so I guess that when she found this piece of paper that had the name, you know, with the last name Whiteman, whatever it was called, the name of the street he lives at, I guess that's where she got the name Dan Doolin.
She found the lead sheet, I think.
Okay, so then
I was looking at Joe's notes
because I was
a couple weeks ago, just reviewing them, trying to figure all this out. And I think what she found initially was the lead sheet. So after that, she went and got in the system.
But because what I'm getting at is, why would she remember Doolin's bullshit from 5 years ago? So I guess the lead sheet probably contained his name as being the reporting officer.
Well, I mean, I think we all have some theories about it, but I'm like trying to make them stick to one thing at a time before I get there.
The lead sheet is like a summary of Dan Doolin's interaction with the person that he interviewed that day. So it's got his information, it's got Rick Allen's information, it's got the date and time, and the text brief of what they talked about.
So that's where she would have got his name, Doolin, to then go inquire about his full report. Correct? Okay.
Right. But so she supposedly found that in her desk drawer, like either right before or right after they had moved offices, because the central command moved at some point in time from one building to another.
But the way they describe it is it was all on its own. Like it wouldn't have been in
it was organic,
of all these other ones or something.
Right. I just opened my drawer and I found this lead sheet.
That was in a box.
And I recognized that Richard Allen Whiteman is not a real name. Yeah.
None of us
got Lucy's everywhere.
Good Lord. She just found it like where it doesn't, at this point, it doesn't matter where it was.
Well, she's not real curious.
Matter in the end of the, the big scheme of things. But the fact is, you found it.
Yeah, and none of the discrepancies bothered her. She just proceeded.
I'm not even going to blame her. That tip could have been put there for her to find. They needed
even if it was, she should know if she's going to run around saying she's putting 2 and 2 together that 3 and 4 are not the same.
Well, no,
earlier in the day is not later in the day.
Just because she held a professional job don't mean she's the brightest cookie in the box.
I know, but if she's going to be changing the course of the most high-profile investigation of this county, she's got to have some agency in this. I'm sure she's a wonderful grandmother. She's probably a lovely wife. I wish them all the best. But that's not an excuse to ruin an innocent man's life just because you are team law enforcement with Jerry Holman.
Well, she gave the tip to law enforcement, and they're the ones who did what they did to Rick Allen. Now, was she just a pawn in the game? Like, she needed to find this tip because we need to do something
She's
quick.
Still going with it, though.
I know. She probably will to the day she dies. She probably don't even fucking know no better, to be honest. She probably got duped by her own people that she thought she was friends with. Who knows? Either way, she foolish. I mean, we get a lot of questions. First, you get to Whiteman. Oh, we don't have, that's a street. Let me go check this out and check that out. I'm an investigator. What, lady? This is a little much. And I get that, but it's still.
Why doesn't law enforcement talk about that other group of girls that was there?
How come they're going to stand there for 5 years saying, we know? And to the killer, you're probably in this room.
All lies.
Hey, we can tell you what we know, and we know. What do y'all know? You didn't know anything apparently until she found the piece of paper.
All lies. Why didn't the defense talk about that more? Why didn't they bring that up more? Why didn't they challenge the timeline more?
It's not their job, number one. But number two, if they don't have any information from law, like they can only stick with pretty much what's in discovery. But I'm not sure that all of them were made available to them. And I don't know that anybody even followed up with them. I'm not sure if defense even knows that there were 3 other girls. But
that's a valid point.
Because if it's not in discovery and they don't know there was another group of 3 and there's this gag order and nobody's allowed to really talk about anything. And I do know that they were receiving tips from the public and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if that was one of them. I didn't realize until very recently that law enforcement doesn't appear to have ever followed up with them.
They didn't follow up with a few people that were out there.
Yeah. Like everybody was just assuming that defense was properly informed of everything that was going on, and they absolutely were not.
Well, even Cheyenne talks about when she rode by and saw Muddy and Bloody, there was a woman that appeared to be in distress, or was that
was the couple on the moped.
Trail?
There was a couple for a long time. We all thought, she was told, no, that was Tara and Derek. Well, by trial, apparently she figured out it was actually a different couple on a moped, not the 2 people in the car. But even then, I'm like, we don't have transcripts, so I'm like relying on these media notes. From what I can tell, that's what happened.
Were people thinking the man and woman in distress that she saw could have been the family members who were already out there searching? Is that what they're saying?
I'm not sure because
if so, that place is Rick Allen
on them. When it came to Cheyenne, Shelby, and one other person, I can't remember who the third one was that afternoon. It might have been Bree on that day or Riley. But when you look at all the media reports for all of the other witnesses, there's quite a bit of information. But when it comes to those, hardly anything. They're still reporting that Cheyenne showed up at 2:50. You cannot park at Mears Lot at 2:50 and be at the south end of the bridge at 2:49 taking a picture. You have to at least be crossing the bridge by 2:40 p.m. And if you're going to get to the bridge by 2:40 p.m., even if you're speed walking, you need to be parking by 2:30. And if Shelby Hicks and Daniel Pearson are already on platform 1 by the time you walk up, they would have had to have been parked and walking up before 2:30, especially if Shelby testified that when they got there, they went to the right towards Freedom Bridge for about 10 minutes before walking. So they would have had to have been there by like 2:10, 2:15. And she testified that when they got to platform 1, there was already a man standing, walking around with a camera, taking pictures. That would have been Dave McCain.
Yeah.
He would have had to have been there around, 2:10. So he would have, and he told Fox 59 reported that he got there at 2. So if he parked at Mears Lot at 2 and walked to the platform, he could have been the person in the background. Like, I'm still irritated by this because the way they're reporting it changes the whole everything. And we're not allowed to verify any of this because everybody's so scared to talk about anything. Trying to clarify these details that are reported is very difficult. But I'm stuck on this, like, great, now I got to hold space in my mind for that. Is that what happened? I don't know if it is. But all of these people who were there earlier could have, like, we don't know who's who yet because they were not asked. And I don't even know if defense would have been informed of this because they were left out of the PCA. Dave McCain never even got a SIM card back. I need to see that SIM card to see what those timestamps are on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But nobody looked at any of that. And then they just shoot him away. And then at one point they told Daniel Pearson, you saw a bridge guy. Nope, actually that was Dave McCain. But the other thing is Cheyenne, you know what she reported? The way she describes the person she saw as the person from Libby's video. She said hi to him and he wasn't very friendly back. Sound familiar?
Yeah. Yeah. And even when I was on Twitter during the trial, and Barbara McDonald had tweeted something, and I had to ask her. I just asked her straight back. So she had reported that when they took the image of the car from the Hoosier Harvester video, they took a still, a screenshot of the video, and they didn't go back and collect the video until years later.
Something to, yes.
5 years later. And I asked her, I was like, wait a minute, they didn't take the video from day one? And
No, Mullen stood there for like 6 hours taking screenshots of all the cars that went by.
She confirmed again.
On the
I was
15th.
like, wait a minute, who?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. Can you imagine in Idaho 4 if they only had screenshots of that leaked Linda Lane footage? Or
No, they'd be laughed out of the place.
They would be like, you ain't lying. That would burn down the internet. But no, we need to have the actual footage taken immediately. And most businesses have systems set up now. Again, it was a long time ago, different time, but they'll record over. They're a loop, right? So the Hoosier Harvest Store literally had that video saved for 5 years.
I'm skeptical about that. I mean, that's what we're told. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Maybe
that would be.
Why didn't you? If they did
common.
have it, well, if they had it, why wasn't it played in court? Just
And
to
why
say,
were the
"Look,
time
that's
frames
his
off on
car."
it? It was 52 minutes fast or 54. And why was there another business in Delphi that day having trouble?
That's evidence.
Like even the dump station or the convenience station, what is it called? The transfer station. Apparently their footage of Ron Logan, they were having trouble with their cameras too.
It's going to be a new juror. People are going to start putting a new question in the jurors' questionnaires. Are you a true crime buff? Because we all might be a little too smart for these.
Well, wasn't one of the people on the jury a cop? He probably explained all this away to them.
Probably. I don't know.
No. That's totally normal.
Yeah,
like, that's what I'm concerned about. Like, was he telling
you see
them
that all the
stuff is
time.
normal and it's actually solid evidence? Like, is he back there the same way Holman was trying to tell people this? Some of the people after trial were still calling Oberg's report a ballistics report. It wasn't fired.
No.
It wasn't ballistics. It was tool marks at best.
Right.
And even then, not really, because if you have one point of comparison, you don't really have anything to do an analysis on. Like, that's not enough. But still, I'm just, these people are driving me nuts.
Yeah. Explain this. Okay. Explain this to me. How do we get from 43 seconds of raw video footage to a quote unquote enhanced video that gets shown to the jury and then they get to rewatch when they ask for it to be rewatched?
I don't know. And why they should have been required to watch they should have been attached. If you're going to review this one, you need to review the raw video
right,
too.
But they know how it was enhanced. What exactly did they do to quote unquote enhance it? What does that mean?
Now,
well, apparently defense was given a report about all of their. It supposedly says where a blur tool was used, where it was brightened. Like they're supposed to. Apparently, this report is supposed to detail every different enhancement they made. The thing that I don't know if they were able to have their own expert to look at it or to do it, but we've seen lots of those published online. Like if you take even just the footage of what they did release, you can do an enhancement of that. How accurate did those turn out to be? Not real accurate. And everybody got a different result. They only got the report for the one that ISP went with.
So True Grit, didn't the investigator you interviewed talk about this a little bit?
Yeah.
They did, didn't they?
She was the one who was talking about how it goes over whether they used a blur tool, if they brightened it here, if they cropped it there. Like it's supposed to tell you every single thing they did.
Well, didn't she say they know who did it and how they did it? But she wouldn't really go into more.
She wouldn't say his name, but he testified. It was Jeremy Chapman of ISP. As soon as Bunner got done doing the quick and dirty extraction they took that phone, they swabbed it for DNA at the Lafayette police post, at the Terre Haute autopsy, and then they drove it to Bunner, and he did a quick and dirty extraction because he wanted to get these screenshots to investigators, and I have a lot of questions about that because you don't have to actually send the phone, but he testified that the person who brought him the phone waited until he was done to take it with him when he was done. I don't know if he means the report or the phone itself. If not, I don't know where the phone went after that or if it stayed there, but after that, Chapman, it was passed on to Chapman, the video and the screenshots, and he's the one who did the AI stuff to it. He used Axon 5 for the video primarily. I don't know if he used other programs as well, but he testified that it was primarily Axon 5 for the video and then Photoshop Suite for the audio.
for the audio. My God. I mean, they
And
can't.
that's way, I'm sorry, but that's way too deep for a jury. Like when they presented this and that's
Well, nobody heard
coincidentally,
gun when they heard the raw audio. Not a
no, I
single
didn't.
media poll report that I saw, I looked at all of them.
Nope.
Nobody heard anything about a gun. It was all
Nope.
the same thing, like the path ends here, where do we go now? Like it was the same. They all heard a little bit different version of the same thing. And then once Liggett got on the stand and testified that be a gun, it's like the jury completely forgot. Like they couldn't unhear it after he said that.
Absolutely,
And
100%.
they asked him
but
what
the-
it said before they were allowed to hear it.
Yep.
And so then they're asking for this
That's-
enhanced shit to review. That's what they heard when they made their decision. That's
Okay, that's
not
bullshit.
right.
I'm sorry, but that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I am not a guilty or not guilty person until I know all the evidence, but I do know that you need to have proper evidence presented in court, and that is not evidence properly presented. It's not.
Well, according to Gull's discretion, it is.
Anything enhanced. I mean, I
That's
get.
what I mean. Like she just, as long as she says she believes it, it's kind of like probable cause. Like the bar is so low to clear for an officer to establish. I have probable cause to believe it. They think if they think it, that's all the cause they need. And same with a judge, apparently. It's frustrating.
There's very limited. The limitations should be very, very particular when it comes to enhancing videos. Even like maybe doing maybe a lighting situation, but when you all go and you alter things and you're changing pixels and you're moving objects closer in than they should be or would have been otherwise.
Yeah, and then splicing him back in closer than he actually is.
If we all
you can do that. You can do that. You can enhance a video, but if I'm on the jury member, I want to know exactly what your enhancement techniques were and exactly what your level of uncertainty is. So you're showing this dude, you're showing Bridge Guy like 10 feet behind Abby. And I want to know if your uncertainty is 50 feet. Like, could he really have been 60 feet behind Abby when you're showing him 10 feet? I want a specific level of uncertainty in your enhancement.
When you were there, was it because all I have to rely on are other people's notes, which drives me crazy, but that's what I've got. And yours were actually helpful, by the way. But I'm talking about like the media poll reports. Like those ones are frustrating. The way all of the discussions at least seem to be, like when I'm looking at all the days when it comes to what's admitted and what's not, it's hard to tell. But when it came to the audio and the enhanced audio and the regular video and the enhanced, it seems like Gull was very particular about when and where it could be admitted or played. And I don't know if they discussed any of that during the trial. Was that because they agreed beforehand on certain stuff and they could only, like they can, as long as they play the audio and then, but then she restricted them from going into it?
Yeah, they definitely agreed on certain evidence that would be admitted ahead of time. I don't know if they had that in closed door hearings or whatever, but they allowed the raw video, 43 seconds, to be played in court. And then the next day, the quote unquote enhanced video. I wasn't there for the original one, but I was there for the enhanced. And I have so many questions about that.
I do too. I have questions about what they had to agree to, because when I hear there was an agreement, we know how those actually go. Like the defense is not agreeing to stuff, they're stuck with it.
Right. Yep.
And if they fight it, the judge has repeatedly
and when there were
retaliated.
When there were sidebars, they would literally go off into the back left corner of the room. The judge would get down off of her high chair up there, and they would walk down there, and Baldwin or Rosie would walk over there, and Nick McClellan would walk over there, and they would have their little discussion, whether it was for 30 seconds or for 4 or 5 minutes, and then they would come back out and they would move on. So we got to know none of that. They would actually play white noise from the speaker.
Yeah.
That was the same speaker that they played the video audio from.
I would like to know how long any of those people, from Gull to Holman, how long they would last under 24-hour surveillance in the same conditions before they're like they're so coddled all the time in every aspect of their job. They're coddled to a point that's embarrassing. and they have the nerve to act like his environment that Mr. Allen was in played no role in anything. It makes my blood boil.
There's so much about this case that made all of us get there, more than once. And
This
the
is
first,
not what a solved case looks like.
and I always say it, I remember the day I heard the girls were missing on the damn news, on CNN, on HLN. Because I was a CNN junkie back then. My kids were little. They were always running around. When they
Yeah.
weren't watching cartoons, I'm watching news. I'm consuming true crime stuff.
Yeah.
And, I know when the girls went missing, I remember stopping and watching and paying attention. Like I usually try to do if it's children. Maybe I'll see them, on the interstate or something. I don't know. So I'm paying attention. And then to follow the case from that day forward. And the only place back then that was covering Delphi was CNN, HLN, and with Susan Hendricks.
Yeah.
She happened to be the news lady at the time.
Lord.
Case happened to go right. That's how that all started. I was one of those originals that knows exactly how Susan got involved with the Delphi case.
Hard to believe it went unsolved for so long.
I know. Then as it progressed, other outlets began to pick it up, and of course social media now after the arrest and everything, that's when social media really became more aware of the case and active in it. But I mean, even back then, who would think that it would get here today? We all, like you said in the beginning, we want to believe coming out that the law enforcement has the right person. And we will believe that until you start showing us otherwise. And
Absolutely.
boy, they start showing us otherwise.
I give them that benefit of a doubt. I still think they have to prove their case, and I don't just give them carte blanche, but I do inherently trust that if they've arrested someone, they have something. Even if it's debatable, they have something. They had nothing. They had Holman through a hissy fit and got into a power struggle and just blinders on, tunnel vision, all kinds of stuff. He's like a big ball of mess. And it's just, they had nothing.
It's hard to believe that it got to where it got, and then how it unfolded. And then when they got to when all the things began to come out about going straight to prison, and then that the Frank's motion came out, and then we realized, well, hang on, not just this stuff you're talking about, but now you got guards doing what, wearing what, and that started happening. And then there's no cameras and none of you can see anything. It's like, no, wait, this is completely
hard to have confidence in any of it when they're not acting like they've got, they can say they have a strong case all day. Why aren't they acting like it?
And it really,
why are they acting like any scrutiny, it'll just crumble?
Yeah. I was really bothered when they didn't have an arrest for such a long time, and I really began to kind of realize where this place was that I'm hearing about in Delphi. Was it somebody passing through the area? Was there an interstate that ran close by where people could get off the interstate, get gas? Was it a random thing? Where was, and then you start to realize the terrain and where this is located, and there's not really a major interstate there. There's the highway, of course, but different things. So then you go, well, it had to be local, right? I live in that small town. I don't live far from the trails myself. You don't know they're down there unless you're from here, unless you're specifically coming here to hike the trails, right? So it's not a random spot that somebody traveling or passing through is going to find their crime of opportunity. So then you go, okay, well, it has to be close by. And then the damn bridge guy video, and then down the hill part comes. It's like nobody in town. And then when he's arrested, you are told he's the local CVS guy
across the street from the sheriff's office every day.
Right? What the
sheriff
hell?
Interacted with him. Even the sheriff didn't think he looked like him.
It blew me away alone. That alone blew me away right there. And I had to go, whoa, wait a minute.
That's because most people can see a red flag. And if they see a red flag, they're like, hold on, let me check this real quick. And not these detectives.
And then the more you start coming out after that, it really began to blow my mind,
Yeah. Until I see Nick McClellan rewriting some history books and the other thing I can't get past is we have bodies of literature and decades of data on the long-term effects of solitary confinement and decades of data on child homicide and victimology, and all. They're going to need to rewrite a lot of stuff if this is true. Like, have they try to get the books updated yet with this new revelation? Because if this is true, the people who study this stuff and are the people who are going to then educate law enforcement who's supposed to be investigating this stuff and solving these crimes, if they don't know about this, that's a problem. If this is a real thing, like, I don't think they realize how ridiculous it is for them to say this. No, we totally believe this, but we're not going to do anything about it. Like, if you actually believe what you're saying, you're going to take next steps to protect against it in the future, but they can't because this isn't true.
Well, it just feels like a total small town cover up ordeal. And I
Yeah.
don't know if they were covering up the fact that they were incompetent in their own investigation skills and they had to do what they did, or if it's a cover up because there's something sinister and bigger going on in the town that people are involved with they don't want you to know about. Or is it come on, it can't be just, oh, we're embarrassed, we don't want this on our town.
I think they have tunnel vision. I don't think they are even thinking straight.
Can y'all be that stupid as a department?
Well, Liggett said the reason they decided the sticks were just used for concealment is because they didn't find them. And when Rosie tried to follow up with him to ask him, wait, what? I'm sorry, what? You think, why do you think they were used for concealment? He's like, well, we were looking for them and didn't see them, so therefore they must have been used to conceal them. Well, if we didn't see them, that's what they were for. That is the level of critical thinking these detectives had.
We're going to toss them aside and leave them out here for
2 weeks, for 2.5 weeks. They left him out there for
said he
2.5
went out there
weeks.
on the 15th to get them.
Yeah.
Doolin said he was out there on the 17th, and he told them to go back there and get them. And then apparently they also went back in March. They can't keep their story straight.
Okay, so I was going to say, whose bright idea was it to go back out there and collect those sticks they were talking about?
The first time it was Datzman. He testified that he took crime scene pictures out there to go back out and look for them on the 15th. So I don't know what Dan Doolin was talking about being out there on the 17th, telling them, y'all need to come get these sticks. If Datzman was out there on the 15th and already got them, what other sticks were they talking about? And then what other ones were they talking about in March?
If you guys have never seen The Reckoning in is it Reckoning in Carroll County or Reckoning of Carroll County, search it on YouTube and give it a watch.
Yeah.
Make your own determination, because I don't like to sway anybody's mind or opinions. I would recommend go watching it on your own like I did. It was recommended to me by someone. Well, I actually saw it somewhere and I was like, what is this? So I clicked, I watched it and I was like, man, wow.
I was floored.
Yeah, I was floored too. And then the Doolin, that name will come up in that program. So give it a watch. The Reckoning of Carroll County. It's pretty good.
Hey, Salty, you know what we haven't done yet at all?
What?
We haven't touched Doug Carter.
Oh my God,
he's retiring on January 13th.
I don't even know where to begin with that man.
The way he went,
we could go another 4 hours.
I probably could, and actually, just because you said that, I'm like, what time is it? I actually do. I'm gonna have to bounce soon, and now I feel bad because we should have talked about Doug Carter because there's a lot.
I was gonna play a little clip from the press conference too, but I'm sure most of you have seen the press conference.
He's so angry.
And him, oh my girl, I was like,
just unraveling in front of the whole world.
Just one more round of word salad before you go. You just can't help it.
No, he's going to come forward and tell us everything that he knew that they knew.
Oh, he told us
2017, 2019, 2022. He's
well,
going to tell us everything.
The prosecutor left him hanging with that one for sure.
He didn't know nothing until Kathy found her damn tip. Obviously, they didn't know shit.
And they didn't know anything more beyond that until a year later, when this dude in between involuntary tranquilizers explained it to the prison psychologist. It's absurd.
They didn't know nothing until they found that stupid tip.
They couldn't prove it, but they believe it.
And
it's crazy.
Which, I'm going to need Carter to come out and answer a few questions. So, Mr. Carter, if you're listening, I don't mean to be shady on you or nothing like that, but I'm willing to sit down and have an adult conversation. I can ask you a few questions. I offered WSU Mom Kim the same opportunity, but she wouldn't take it. Are you a bitch like her? I mean...
Oh, damn. You are throwing shade.
I can't help it.
I mean, I feel like that's more respect than he's earned.
If you
For
want my
being- for
respect, you
being
need
real
to earn
honest.
it. I'll give you benefit of the doubt, but when you start showing me how dumb you really are,
Well, when
I
he starts
can't.
talking to us like that, like,
Yeah, talking
Yeah.
down to us like we don't know nothing and gonna stand up there on his high horse and preach with his word salad
y'all are
and
the
his
ones who didn't know anything. Y'all
yeah.
had to wait for someone to show up and explain it to you. You didn't figure out shit.
I don't trust
Well, I
anybody
got-
who wants to come in and
I
control
got
that
Jack.
conversation like that.
I got Jack from Never a Truer Word to come on and go over one of his press conferences.
That was real
like
good.
the one in 2019, and damn, that was good.
It was
Like there were
good.
a couple reactions by him because Jack also did a review of Richard Allen's confessions, and he was critical of them, and he received criticism back from those
Those were
because
fair, in my
people
opinion.
like Bob Motta would tell him, like, when he made these confessions, he was like psychotic, right?
Yeah.
But our analysis, his analysis, not ours, his analysis of Doug Carter's interview in 2019 was freaking amazing. Like, that was great. That's like one of my favorites ever.
Yeah, that was a good one. There were some interesting things in there that I don't know if, I mean, I've heard it before, but it never sunk in until he was kind of dissecting it. That was a real interesting stream.
Yeah, it was. It was. There's a lot of good conversations that come out of this. Unfortunately, they get. I made a tweet one time about this case, and it was early on when things were starting to come out, and I was like, "Dear Judge Gull, you make me feel like a conspiracy theorist." And Bob Motta was the first one to like that post. I was like, "Cause it's true. None of us want to come out and just automatically think these things, but there they are. And what do you do with it? And
Yeah, do they think that this is? I wake up, I'm like, yay, I get to go be
Well, the
upset.
way Doug-
I would
yeah.
prefer things were done right and have a reason
Yeah.
to say thank you. This is wonderful. I would always prefer that. This is not. It's not
Well,
something I
Doug
was
Carter
hoping
came
for
out and
or
just
like
going
doing.
right off the bat with the "we didn't lie" and
Oh Lord, yes they did.
and throwing shade the way he did at the defense team. Like why did you need to feel to do all that?
That was desperate and gross.
Yeah, exactly. Desperate and gross. Why were you so compelled to come out and go right to that?
Petty. You don't want the superintendent of the freaking state police
Instead of coming out and
petty.
telling us what he knows, he wanted to come out and say, "Look how assholes they were. We
You're
were
like,
right
well, we're
all
just
along."
human. Well, you know who else is? This defendant. Like, he's mad that people are not giving him what he can't even extend himself. Sorry,
No.
buddy. I'm just,
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
no, Doug Carter's taken every excuse I have ever been able to come up with for him away from me. He ran out, fresh
too.
out.
Me too, because I have watched way too many press conferences where I've had to sit there and endure his bullshit. And the dumb things that was coming out of his mouth, these, the merging together of the damn sketches was bad enough. And the way he came out and talked down to the room and to the killer, "I know you're in here." The way his whole presence and his whole vibe, the energy he gave did not jive with me at all, ever.
Yeah.
It's like I probably wouldn't be able to stay in a room.
He's unserious.
I couldn't be in his presence long. I know Joe got to be in his presence for a few minutes, and he caught a vibe. But me personally, energetically, I probably couldn't stay in a room long with him.
It was the rotunda in the third floor of the Delphi Carroll County Courthouse. So, yeah, I mean, we could maintain our distance, so I didn't have to let him know what I thought. But he was going around and he was giving hugs to family members, and there were like 20 family members there, and he got like 3 hugs. And I kind of feel like at least 2 of those hugs were kind of like forced. Like they're like, "Oh, do I have to? Okay, I'll give you a hug."
Boundaries, dude. Boundaries.
Yeah, he doesn't know boundaries.
No sense of boundaries, no self-awareness. I swear to God.
No, he doesn't. That's true.
No, it's crazy. I can't with Doug Carter. He's just one of those people that, and when I say that I couldn't be in the room with him, like, energetically, he would probably drain my energy really bad, or I would get so overwhelmed, sick feeling, I would have to get out of there. It's happened, and it's because he's got a bad vibe, you know.
Got bad vibes, dude.
Bad juju.
Dakota has
juju.
bad vibes.
Can't be near that too much. Well, I appreciate you coming up, All Eyes, and Joe, I appreciate you coming in to join us as well.
I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm glad I hit you up earlier. True Grit, check your email, hun. I wanted to get you up here earlier. I'd reached out to All Eyes about that as well, so we will make it happen. But I can't DM you on Twitter. You're not set up to accept DMs. But yeah, check your email. Guys, I've dropped the links to their channels. Like I said earlier, True Grit did a great interview with one of the investigators on the case. You can go over to her channel and check that out. All Eyes dropped a video before I went live on Officer Greg Ferenczi. I encourage you to go and check that out as well. They're great channels. And Joe's link was also in there. So Joe and I alternate. When he'll go live and I'll come jump in, and I go live, he comes and jumps in.
I love it when y'all do.
So well, thank you. We've been so the new year coming up, I want to go live more, right? I'm at home now full time, so I'm able to get more done. And I'm talked to Joe a little bit about that. He's busy. He still works and stuff. So, but we're going to try to work it out to be coming more. And there's other cases I want to bring and talk about as well. And plus stay on top of this one and see how it, follow it from beginning to end is usually what I do when I'm on a case. I'll just want to follow from beginning to end.
Lori Valadebo, I'm going to see her in person again sometime soon. Maybe January.
That one's going to be real interesting.
Yeah, we're going to cover that one as well. I want to do a show and kind of get everybody caught up to speed with how we got here with Lori, in case you don't know. Joe and I have done a couple of streams over on his channel. Joe, we did where we presented some video and different things. So when you're over at Joe's channel, look for the video, the live.
Wild.
Yeah, she really is.
She's something else. She is something else.
Well, we're going to be taking a look at that case and covering it as well. Anything you guys want to add to the conversation before we head out tonight?
No, it's good to talk to y'all though.
Well, I
It's
appreciate
good to see you, All Eyes. Very good.
Really good to hear from you. You have some great insight into the case. True Grit does as well. And DB, I see you're in here. Thanks for coming in. Sleuthy. I have to give a shout out to my girl Sleuthy, because
We love
if it
Sleuthy.
wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to have kept up with a lot of what was going on in this case,
Right.
especially in the beginning, right? She's done so amazing at just getting the information out there, and letting you do what you will with it. Like you come to your own conclusion with it, and so big shout out to Sleuthy for all the work she's done in this case as well. Again, guys, if you don't mind, hit that like button. I'm so bad. I forget that every time. Like I have to get to have the habit to say it, I guess. But if you don't mind,
before you bounce.
like button.
Yep. Like before you bounce.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Let's come up with some kind of little saying so I can remember. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming in and joining us. I know that my thumbnail mentioned Bryan Kohberger, so let me say this real quick.
Yeah, definitely didn't
So-
get there.
True Crime dropped a video, and you can go to her Patreon. You can buy all kinds of PDFs and all documents, all this stuff. This one's not worth buying. But what it is she dropped a video where someone on Twitter had recommended she do this and get the FOIA on some information. Well, what she got was there was an episode at WSU back in 2021, and there's body cam video out there now of that. I'll probably maybe go to live tomorrow and just show it a little bit. But all it really is when this incident happened in 2021, Kohberger didn't live in Pullman, Washington. So by the time the Idaho 4 case happened and he became a suspect there, then at some point he became a person of interest in that 2021 case. And that's what her video is talking about. Well, I had people hit me up on Twitter, my TikTok, and one on YouTube about it. And that's what it is about, and it's not like he was the person of interest and he was that, from 2021. I don't know. But as far as we all know, he wasn't there in 2021. So he became a person of interest in that case once Idaho 4 happened, and he was named a suspect there. Obviously, nothing came of it. But the thing about it is when you watch the body cam footage and listen to what happened. So these girls have an apartment. There was, I think, 3 or 4 of them. When the girl woke up, she heard her door open, and when she woke up, there was a man standing in her bedroom with a knife, and he had on a burgundy ski mask, I think it was, and she kicked him in the stomach, and he ran. And he was not a tall guy. So that's all I do know at this point, but people wanted to know, oh my God, is that Kohberger? I don't know if that dude's innocent or guilty of Idaho 4. But he was only named a person of interest in that case because of what happened after. You know what I mean? So he didn't even live there as far as I know. So that's one thing I wanted to clarify about that.
Crazy.
Yeah. But if you want to check out the video, it's Plunder True Crime. I don't have her link right now, but some of you may be familiar with her and some of you may not. But just type in Plunder True Crime and you'll see it. And she's catching hell on Twitter. There's somebody who is always went hard for the defense in the Kohberger case, and I respect the hell out of her. We have a cool relationship on Twitter. May not see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I got a lot of respect for her. And she gave her hell, and she didn't hold back. And I was like, whoa, because it was making him look bad when that case doesn't need it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't need the extra bullshit. And I think that's what I get tired of and what others get tired of. And that's what they talk about when too much media and putting an idea into the people's heads before trial, which can affect your jury pool, and all those things that become involved with it. So if I can ever, because I feel very differently about Idaho than I do Delphi. And that will come out in some of the streams I do, but don't put out the bullshit, and make it appear one way when it's really not that way. And if you want to talk about that, that's fine, but be honest about it. He didn't live there during that time. Now, if y'all want to talk about Dana's case and his parents testifying at a grand jury over there in Pennsylvania, we'll do that all day long because that happened, but this, nah, we're good. So wanted to clarify that in case anybody saw that and was wondering. Then you saw a thumbnail and we didn't never get to Kohberger because right now that case just was not, it's not that it's not as important as Delphi. There's just a lot more going on with Delphi. And I can tell you from Ann Taylor's filings and all that good stuff, he's in good hands.
Yeah.
Kohberger's good to go. So, yeah. All right. Again, thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate it. I tell you what, when I do talk about Kohberger next, Sleuthy, you ought to come up and talk with me.
Yeah.
Talk about the DoorDash driver. There's still some rumors going around about that I can't believe are still out there. And I'm like, what? I thought y'all were past that.
I'm so behind on Kohberger. Anytime I have a question, I go to her Twitter first just to look.
Yeah, there's
I'm
not
like,
much,
she'll know.
yeah, there's not a whole lot out there. I mean, his attorneys aren't bringing us good juicy stuff. You know what I mean? She's bringing us normal defense stuff.
Yeah.
That really right now, and there are some interesting things that she wants to suppress in the case that make you wonder why. I mean, we get why they wanted to suppress Alan's confessions because the circumstances behind them, right?
Right.
But if your phone data that you claim the prosecution has is going to be what solidifies your client's alibi, why do you now want that kept out of court? What about his statements to the police officers over there in Pennsylvania do you want to be kept out? Like, there's things like that happening in the court filings, and I do need to go over those, but that's a whole other longer show. So we'll get there. We'll get there one day this week, hopefully, because we do need to catch up as that case is progressing now. And I don't think that judge will play around as much as the other judge did as far as holding off on rulings or hearings. He kind of wants to move this along. You know what I mean? It's been 2 damn years as well. Let's get on the ball here.
Yeah.
So time to do it. Let's do this. All right, guys. Thanks again for coming in, Joe. We appreciate you. All you guys have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao all. Take care.